Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Backlog Banter. This is the tired episode. I'm sure we've had a tired episode before, but we're doing a very early episode of BLB because we're pretty sure this one's going to go long.
Yes.
We had a long episode last time. We had an episode maybe a few times ago that was called the long episode, if that wasn't the last one. Who the hell knows? I don't keep track of Backlog Banter. Are you kidding me? But I'm still in that mode. Like, all I've done is get out of bed, wash my face, and gab a little bit with Abram.
Sure.
But I'm still in that mode where, like, my eyes and my lips feel a little puffy. You ever, like, wake up, you're, like, really not fully awake, and, like, feel like you're, like, doing this, but, like, not on purpose. It's just, like...
Yeah, I kind of had that feeling where, like, it feels like someone else's eyes are in my head. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
Like, my eyes feel foreign.
Yeah. And we're here to find our eyes and find our energy by talking about a bunch of really strange video games. Because boy, howdy, boys, do we have a lineup for you today?
We do. I mean, I got some choice meats. I got some fucking moldy old lamb bones. I got all kinds of stuff to talk about today.
Well, welcome to the butcher's shop episode, the deli episode of Backlog Banter.
Take a number. Look at thunk. All right. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to?
First, I need to remember where I left off last time, which I believe was you talking about Pikmin 1.
Hold on. Flag on the play. I'm hearing a little static. You want to jostle your hot rod?
Well, the problem is, I believe I would have to stop recording.
Oh, you know what? Just throw the denoiser on it. It's fine.
Is it like a microphone static or is it like background static?
No,
because it might be my computer's. My computer's worrying.
It's probably just your fan then. Worst comes to worst, folks, let me tell you something. You go in Adobe Premiere, you type in denoiser, you drag that hot rod on the audio channel, 20% denoise, and it's not even noticeable.
Yeah, it really takes it down a notch, you know what I'm saying?
Tucker, time in.
Pikmin? Pikmin time.
Holy Christ. We're going back.
Yeah, we're going back a while because I had not beaten... I'd started, but I had not beaten Pikmin 1. And you and I started talking about... the Pikmin time clock and the day counter and how that was affecting my gameplay versus yours. And I'm here to report the last thing we touched in was you'd be like, you're gonna make it. It's fine. I absolutely would not have made it if I had not used guides to be like, okay, here, best kind of Pikmin to bring for this. Make sure you're taking down this first. This is where this is. Because I beat Bulblax on day 30, which means no, I would not have made it. And I know that it is my inexperience with Pikmin 1 primarily that led me to that conclusion, to barely getting in under the wire. But I can say for the first playthrough that the day counter was an interesting concept, but it certainly did not increase my enjoyment of Pikmin 1. And I think that's interesting that some people stand by it, yourself included, because the more that you learn about Pikmin 1, the more you enjoy it, the less the day counter becomes a problem in the first place, or even possible to be a problem in the first place. I'm sure if I replayed the game, I could get in, 21 days, 20 days, whatever it is, and of course you optimize. But it's actually for the least experienced players on the first playthrough where that pressure is the biggest problem.
Sure.
But the people who stand by it most are the people who have a lot of Pikmin experience and can beat Pikmin 1 in 9 days or whatever it is. So I found that to be a really interesting balance.
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting idea that I never really thought about before. It's definitely... I think the first answer we said off the bat, you killed a number of Pikmin in your Pikmin 1 playthrough that I think I've killed in my Pikmin trilogy playthrough combined, which is really... I wish I could have had like CCTV footage of your Pikmin adventure, because I'm just curious, because I hate losing Pikmin. I lose a lot of them because I'm stupid.
Yeah.
But what'd you lose, like 1,300?
I don't remember. The picture's in there somewhere.
Yeah, the picture's in there somewhere. But you
followed by a comment from Phil going like, Jesus Christ, what the hell?
Yeah. No, but I think you make an interesting point about the day system. I'm trying to think back when I finally did like my completed run of Pikmin 1. Mm-hmm. I think I beat the game on like day 25 or day 26.
Sure. So you were close, but not. You weren't under the wire like I was.
Yeah, close, but no evil cigar or whatever. You ever heard that expression? Close, but no cigar.
Yeah, but where did evil come from?
Because usually, like, close but no cigar is bad, but this time, I'm like, but, like, the cigar is evil, so I didn't get it. I was close to the cigar. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But the point being is...
This is the metaphorical episode.
The point being is this is why, in part, I really enjoy the Pikmin series.
Yeah.
Because each Pikmin game really, sort of on a meta level, offers a different, like, structural incentive to play.
Sure.
And so, when I think about Pikmin 1, for me, that simplicity... combined with that little bit of pressure is really excellent. But at the same time, what the reason I think this series is so enduring and why I hope at some point these games come back to be able to play them in an easier format is like, and I know you played Pikmin 2, so we'll talk about that in a minute, but that game offers such a different reason to like engage in the Pikmin world, be it, you know, the more explorative focus with no day system and the caves you go into, to where like I think all the games complement each other really nicely. Yeah. You want big, cinematic, really streamlined Pikmin, you play Pikmin 3. You want simple, well-executed, kind of stressful Pikmin, you go back to Pikmin 1. You just want to explore and battle some horse shit, see some cool environments, you go to Pikmin 2. And I think that makes the system, or the series. Interesting in a way, kind of to like 3D Mario, not to the same extent of variation, but the way you would go back and play 64 and Galaxy and Sunshine all together. I think you can do the same with Pikmin.
Yeah, Pikmin 3D All-Stars coming soon to the Nintendo Switch 5 or whatever in a couple of years. No, but yeah, that is true. Yeah. I just think it's really interesting to think about that day counter because that's not my biggest issue with the game. Full disclosure, I love this game. I put Pikmin 1 on my top 100 games of all time, and also Pikmin 2 and Pikmin 3. So you know, I'm just a Pikmin fan. But it didn't help, and I don't know who it helps because as you said, the framing of that becomes that it's pressure really only the first time around. Yeah,
I think it's the sort of thing of like, but that's kind of what it's designed to do, right? It is designed to make you pressured, and then it's designed to like give you reasons.
But people speedrun every game.
Yeah, no, but what I mean is like the fun of Pikmin for a lot of people is that pressure, and if the pressure is not fun, then the pressure goes away as you play more. But like just because. Think about, like, the escape sequence in Super Metroid, one of the most iconic sequences in a Nintendo game. Yeah. You play Super Metroid twice, the escape sequence doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. But it's the fact that it's crafted in that way, it's really interesting. Yeah. And there's sort of a design interest to that challenge, to that day clock, and then it goes away. But it's very rare that a challenge sort of stays perennially active. I mean, even think about Souls games. People who play a lot of Souls games can play those games literally never getting hit at a certain point.
Soul level 1, no clothes, just beating shit up.
It doesn't mean that the challenge in them is any less interesting. It just means that you as a player conquered it.
Of course. No, naturally. But and here's the thing. I said that the day counter was my biggest problem. And I mentioned this last time. But it's the AI of the Pikmin and Pikmin 1 that really is the problem with that game. Because I said this was my thesis statement last time. Yeah. Is it's like babysitting 100 little morons. And I absolutely do stand by that. Right. The reason so many died, the reason I found that day clock frustrating is because I didn't feel like I had control over my own situation to get to things in the amount of time that I wanted to and feel like, oh, I can do this in 30 days. Like, no, I'm trying to get it in 30 days, but these motherfuckers are running in the fire, they're drowning themselves, and I'm throwing themselves off cliffs, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, and that is why, primarily, along with some other quality of life changes, I, after beating Pikmin 2, do prefer Pikmin 2. It's not by a huge degree, but I would make a pretty confident claim that it is the better game. It is on a lot of levels in terms of greatly improved Pikmin AI. Right. The one particular place that I commend them on is when you cross fucking bridges in Pikmin 2. Your Pikmin go, they like single file across. Well, no, single file, but they like gorp into a smaller thing so they're not like spilling off the edge, which is one of the things that annoyed me the most in Pikmin. I was like, I'm trying to cross a bridge with these guys, and for some reason it's never the water Pikmin, but like, you know, the yellow Pikmin and the red Pikmin are fanning out to the edges, and they're just like this seems like the right path to get across this bridge. I'm so glad that they pretty greatly fixed the AI in Pikmin 2.
Yeah, I think, you know, the thing about it for me is I think some of the rough edges in Pikmin 1, a little bit of that friction makes the game interesting. Sure. But it doesn't make the game better than what came after, you know what I mean? And I think Pikmin 2's Pikmin AI finds like probably the right balance of understandable, controllable, but still out of your control enough that you can't just do whatever the hell you want with the Pikmin. I really do think that part of what makes Pikmin special, because frankly the game is not that complex, is the fact that the Pikmin are sentient, and so they if they don't have the flower in their head, they're going to walk slower, and you have to sort of manage them. And that management makes the gameplay like just push back on you enough to where you have to be really deliberate about where your Pikmin are placed, how you're crossing obstacles and things.
Sure.
So I think there's almost something to be said for Pikmin 2's AI maybe being the best in terms of still giving you a little bit of gumption, depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah.
In terms of the experience. I will say this, though, and I'm curious what you think about this facet of Pikmin 2, because I think Pikmin 2 is the weakest. And the reason I do really, in large part, comes down to the caves, which I think are just incredibly boring. Because for me, when I think about why I love Pikmin, I think of like these curated, natural environments.
Yeah.
And the problem with the caves is not only that they're underground and kind of boring visually for the most part, but because they're procedurally generated in a way to... And I was reading some threads about this on Reddit, because someone just put out a pretty big YouTuber put out a video like Pikmin 2 is the worst one. Talking about how like the pseudo procedurally generated structure leads to you playing very carefully of like really cautious playstyle, like edge into a room, maybe fight the enemy, maybe try to dodge, maybe try to grab the treasure and just like jet away. Yeah. And for me, that just doesn't feel that interesting, even though I think it adds a really nice like challenge beat to the whole experience. But to me, that's what really puts Pikmin 2 at number 3 for me.
Well, I think that comes down to our differing play styles of how we enjoy engaging with Pikmin on like that micro. Am I edging forward? Am I pushing forward? How am I strategizing to take down enemies? Focus, because that's how I play Pikmin, regardless. Sure. So when I was thrown down into those caves, though, I will absolutely grant there are too many caves. They are too long. The fact that they are most of the game is where I absolutely concede that they are an issue with the game. But I think that they are a great way to, on a conceptual level and mostly on an execution level, to break up the gameplay, to introduce something where you are going down more linear corridors, to add a different kind of combat and collection element where the overworld can't really do that because it is focused on making things more naturalistic and having less enemy variety. They can fucking throw anything down there, or they can have some, not all, but some that are themed after a certain challenge type or look a different way. Like some of them are based around food, some of them are based around toys. And of course those aren't the majority, but those do stand out. They make no sense, but they add a lot of charm to the Pikmin universe. And I found it to be really compelling to take that slow and careful approach, which I was already doing to a certain extent in the overworlds, in Pikmin 1 and in Pikmin 3, which I had already beaten at this point. But because I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm a platoon leader leading my team, and I need to go left, go right, like sneak down the corridor, send some guys over here. It was a lot more tactical in that way, in a way that maybe is because I was taking it so slowly and carefully, like almost every cave, getting every single item and beating every single enemy, that I ended up enjoying the caves so much. And I do think that the fact that the caves do have those pros, as I said, of breaking up the gameplay, of introducing this challenge, and the game on the overworld level, I would contend, even though it is very obvious, asset reusing sequel, Pikmin 2, that they're reusing the map layouts and then, things are changing like that the quality of life upgrades from Pikmin 1 to Pikmin 2 make the overworlds better than Pikmin 1. And for me, the caves were a benefit because I enjoyed tackling them from that slower and more tactical regard.
Yeah, I think really ultimately my biggest problem just comes down to the fact that it feels like you're in the caves more than you're in the overworld. And I'm not sure exactly how true that is, but the majority...
It's close enough to be weird.
Right. The majority of like the high value treasure is underground.
Yeah.
And I just think about how fun it is in the overworlds to sort of solve these smaller environmental puzzles, to find all of the various treasures sort of stuck throughout it. And I just think that to me is where the game is a little bit more successful. But I definitely agree with you that the challenge of the caves is really great. And when you do get to the one with the bread bugs and you're going through like the little kids play areas and the bread bugs are like hauling donuts around and everything, it is really cute.
And it's definitely it's a lot more variety than Pikmin 1 ever even attempted to have. And I think that's why it for me is a clear step above is because you're talking about these environmental puzzles, you're talking about those
Yeah.
things. Those are in Pikmin 2's overworld, and frankly, I think I found them a little more compelling there because there was
Sure.
more of a reason to. Because of course in Pikmin 1 it was getting a ship part,
Right.
which largely all contributed the same thing, but there's more reason for exploration in Pikmin 2 and to engage with those overworld puzzles because you're going to find something that's going to make you significant progress and give you access to a whole area of new caves. And I found that to be a much more interesting reason to engage with the overworld. So it was sort of a synergy that I think each level boosts each other up, though the caves I do think are the weakest part.
Yeah.
But not because of anything they do, but because of how many of them there are.
Yeah, and to me, it's just such a central design sink for me that it puts it at the bottom of the trilogy. But nonetheless, I love all three of the games. It's just a matter of the degree to which I love them.
Sure.
But I will say that and I talked about this when I talked about the game before, the gimmick of the treasure is better than the ship parts. It's better than the fruit. And it goes back.
Of course it is. Yeah.
It goes back to just the tone of the game.
Well, there are fruit. The fruit
sure.
in Pikmin 2 are the same fruit in Pikmin 3, well, largely.
Yeah.
And they're called the same things. And I was like, oh, well, this makes like the main collectible of Pikmin 3 kind of feel reused. Though I still think Pikmin 3 is the best. I think both you and I would agree on that. It was like, oh, well, I hope that they do something more interesting for the collectibles in Pikmin 4.
Yeah, I mean, because like when finding the branded items, or even you find some Nintendo items, like it's just really humorous how these items become interpreted through Olimar and Louis' sort of understanding of the world. But more than that, I think what really cements sort of like the tone and the narrative as compelling to me are the messages you get from your boss.
From the president.
At the end of every day.
Holy Christ.
Yeah.
That is a level of nihilistic capitalism darkness that I never expected to see from a Nintendo game.
Yeah.
He's telling you stories about how everyone hates him, he's been kicked out, he's living under a bridge, he's scrounging for food, living with animals, and it's just like, I can't even... How did this get past Nintendo?
Yeah.
Canonically, the only homeless Nintendo character, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's so funny, and the Nintendo games that reach that level of commentary are the ones that I think on a story level stick out the most. I mean, I think about it in the context of Splatoon 3, and it's sort of a narrative about climate change that is in those logs. Now, obviously, it's way more backgrounded than like Pikmin 2's narrative, but I like when Nintendo tackles those topics. What is the reason that the world is now decimated, and he's got these little space captains and these little colorful critters finding batteries? Like, why did that happen? You know, and then how is their world almost repeating the flaws of ours? And I think that's really quite compelling.
Yeah, and from a story level, I just want to say I'm very glad I started Pikmin 2 the day after I finished Pikmin 1, or the day I finished Pikmin 1, because it takes place like one day later.
Yeah, it's such a clever
Olimar
framing.
goes back to Hagate, and they're just like, no, actually, get back out there. Here's Louis, here's another ship, get the hell out of here. And I was like, hold on, wait. I might be the first person to play them back to back. Like, well, of course, that's probably not true. But I'm certainly the first person I know that played them back to back.
For the first time, maybe.
Oh, true. Great point. But that's how they should be played canonically.
Also, I laughed my dick and balls off when you leave the planet, it cuts that reaction shot of Olimar going like, "Where's Louis?"
Yeah, and I do think that the charm and the extra characters and the expansion to the lore, and with the treasures and with the president and with that post game, I think that makes it a step above Pikmin 1 in a way Pikmin 1 never really attempted to.
Yeah,
the logs from Olimar are fun, but they don't have the commentary, the story, the variety, the comedy of the Pikmin 2's logs, which you'll get one from Louis' mom, you'll get one from Olimar's son, you get them from the president, you get them from his wife. Like, there is a variety. Eventually, I said Louis' mom, it might be his grandma or something like that. Yeah. But I think that absolutely adds a lot, even though I watched some videos, people take issue with Olimar being silent in this because you don't get those logs from him. Yeah. Louis being silent and annoying, but again, I think that's the point. I kind of like Louis. He's a fucking bag of shit.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I don't know. I think these two games are really interesting, but
Yeah.
for me, the bar is pretty clearly on Pikmin 2's side from those quality of
Sure.
life changes, the additions to the gameplay with the purple and white Pikmin, which I actually like that they're not grown in the normal way because it does make them more of an interesting commodity in a way that the other Pikmin types
Yeah.
never get a chance at. Like, I had like 300 of every Pikmin in Pikmin 2, except for the ones where I'm like scrounging by. I'm like, oh, I really want more purple Pikmin or more white Pikmin.
Yeah, I mean, my problem with that is I think that I like the ecology of Pikmin really being like real creatures, and
Yeah.
to the candy pop buds, like transforming them into white and purple Pikmin. To me, I don't really like that on like a lore level, but I also don't really like it on a gameplay level. Of like, there are times when there's a poison trap, and I have literally 2 white Pikmin.
Yeah. And that's absolutely true.
And I just think that didn't feel balanced out really well. Or I actually got to one point where I entered a cave, and the only way to progress was to have white Pikmin to clear a barrier, and I didn't have any. So there were no candy pop buds on the floor to transform them. All I could do was flee the cave. I just don't think that it's especially well thought out, and because those Pikmin types aren't like integrated into your core Pikmin stock, the number of puzzles like designed around them is so few that I greatly prefer like the fact that there are very deliberate things to do with the rock Pikmin and the wing Pikmin and Pikmin 3.
Of course.
Because you persistently are collecting them.
Sure.
So
absolutely.
It's a good like baseline idea, but that's another reason why like for me, I either want the simplicity of Pikmin 1 or the really, I think, nuanced complexity of Pikmin 3.
Mm-hmm.
But Pikmin 2 still has a lot I like. Like, again, the last thing I'll say is I just think it's so funny that you're watching the credits and it's just like Louis like kicking rocks and like looking around like, oh, I guess I'm here now.
The credits are just pictures of Louis hanging out.
Yeah.
And somehow not dying. Like, he's just chill.
He's just chilling.
I can't remember if he's using Pikmin or not at that point. He might just be like by himself, but he's like hanging out by a strawberry and like sitting on a rock.
It's such a smart framing for the post game.
Yeah, so which I personally didn't tackle.
No.
I had my fill of Pikmin 2, and I kind of canonically Louis is on the PNF 404, and that's it. That's my story from Pikmin 2.
My real feeling about it is I'm gonna rebuy the game with new play control and then do the post game that way.
Oh,
because I played it.
Well, and also play through the entire beginning of the game again.
True, but also like you can beat Pikmin 2. What I didn't realize is it seems like a really good speedrun game because as soon as you get 10,000 treasure, the game just ends.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
And that's what I did.
Right, and so my feeling is now that I know the game a little better and with like better controls I'm more familiar with, I can zap through it and jump to the post.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to hear your experience because also this is the first time you played through a Pikmin game without pointer controls, correct?
I mean, Pikmin 3 Deluxe.
The
gyro drifted so much. I was like, I'm just not gonna play without it. But yeah, no, I mean, I talked about it a little bit. It works. It's just not the way that's not how I want to play Pikmin.
All right, enough about Pikmin.
Yeah,
23 minutes, perfect amount for Pikmin.
Yeah.
We got so much else.
It's just such a lovely series. I think it deserved it.
Absolutely.
Should I go?
Okay.
I want to talk about a game.
Yes, let's go.
Finally. I want to talk about Splatoon 3 for a minute because here's the thing about it. You know, we did our review of the single player and it was a really robust discussion. Frankly, I don't think we're going to talk about the other facets of the game in a dedicated video.
No, it's a little too late for that.
Yeah, so
games came out over a month ago.
Yeah.
That's insane to think about.
So I don't want to go and here's what Turf War is and here are my thoughts on Turf War or whatever. I just kind of want to say this.
Yeah.
Because you asked me after that discussion a really interesting question, which
as usual,
that happens rarely, and the question, and the question you asked me was, is Splatoon 3 automatically like one of my top 5 games of all time or whatever?
Yeah,
replacing Splatoon 2, and what I said to you was like, no. Because it took Splatoon 2 like 18 months to replace Splatoon 1.
Yeah.
Because I had to wait for an Octo expansion and Clan Blitz and all this new stuff. And then I was like, okay, this is the full kit and caboodle expansion over 1. And so over the past, couple weeks, I have really gotten into playing Splatoon 3 regularly.
Good. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good.
I think I'm not, I've got 20 hours or more and climbing. I think I'm pretty close to passing 25 hours or more. But I think I'm really just getting back into the rhythm of playing Splatoon. I'm finding weapons I really enjoy. I'm finding gear sets I really like. And I'm really just starting to appreciate how the game really has smartly overhauled just certain elements of Splatoon.
Yeah.
You know?
It's ostensibly almost everything. When you're looking at it on a nook and cranny level, you're like, oh, all right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing of like...
I'll spin off your direction. I can't remember what's going there.
It's the sort of thing of like, you know, I was like, I'm waiting to make it one of my favorite games of all time, and I still am, but it's like what I'm really...
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, and what I still really will...
It's only been out for a month.
Yeah, be like, you know, I really am going to need to see those new maps and modes in that single-player expansion.
Of course, yeah.
But what I've come to appreciate the more I play is like, yeah, no, there really is a substantial amount change to just the Splatoon quality of life experience here.
Yeah,
you know, there's two things I really want to shout out, and they're both progression based. I think that they really took progression to a new level of quality in this game.
Sure. Yeah.
The first one is with the catalog, because the catalog just you unlock a catalog level up so quickly that basically every session, even as your regular level EXP bar goes longer, you hit new catalog upgrades quickly, which makes you feel like, oh shit, I'm really unlocking a lot. This is really cool. Everything is smartly tailored to sort of empower you and progress you as a player, because the ranked system is the other big example of this. You can either play an individual battle, which is going to move your rank a little bit, or you can do the Anarchy series, which you play 5 in a row. You can take breaks, but you play 5, and then
is that something that was in the other games?
No.
Okay. Cool.
You play 5, and then your rank is changed at the end. You need to you need to try to win 5, but if you lose 3, your series is cut short.
Sure.
But the thing about it is that you will get sort of a bonus increase or decrease to your rank based on whether or not you win or lose the series. But your progression is based on your individual performance in the round. So
I've heard that.
You can lose an Anarchy series and still rank up. I mean, like, these are just really smart changes to the structure of online multiplayer. Because like, we were playing Overwatch 2, and we're going to talk about that in this video. But I was getting so fucking annoyed when, even though we're just playing quick play, I'm like, I know that we're going to lose, and I'm barely going to make any progress towards my battle pass. Yeah. But in Splatoon 3, you are always making progress, and they are always rewarding you as a player in addition to you as a team. Absolutely. And that shit just makes the gameplay so much smoother and so much less frustrating when I know, like, I just need to work on my own self-improvement, and I'm going to climb the ranks. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to unlock new gear. So I'm just really loving the game, and already, even though I do think the game needs more maps, it needs more weapons, it just needs more, the foundation is so much stronger than it's ever been before.
Yeah, and I think that is why, when I finished the Splatoon 3 campaign, not only did I slap like a 9 out of 10, I think I actually put it at 10 out of 10 at first on backlog. I'm like, God damn, that was special. But it instantly, for me, replaced Splatoon 2, because Splatoon 2 was my Splatoon experience. I never played Splatoon 1. And so now that I know what Splatoon is, and I know that I like Splatoon, and I know that there are elements of Splatoon 2 that could be done better. And I'm playing Splatoon 3, and I'm like, oh no, they did it better here. You can play Salmon Run anytime. There is that customization and able to express individual personality in a way the previous games didn't, by customizing your locker and giving yourself a little splash tag and getting emotes for when you win. And I think that the Splatsville is a much more interesting location than, what was the one in Splatoon 2?
It's Inkopolis Plaza, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
And then it's Inkopolis Square.
Plaza was
the first one. They're too similar. They were taking it
matter. That's kind of the thing about Splatoon 2 is like, it kind of feels like Splatoon 1.5, but this really does feel like, from what I know about yearly multiplayer focused this wasn't yearly, but a sequel to iterative multiplayer focused games, this is the kind of stuff that I've never really experienced. They're really changing a lot of the minutia here, and they're adding more options that make it a more robust experience. And I think from the upgrades to the animations, from the better single player campaign, and the fact that this is already a stronger beginning package than any of the two games could even like peer on a fucking telescope at, I think this is easily the best game in the series and the definitive Splatoon experience. Like, definitely. You could go back and play Octo expansion, or maybe the single player of 2 if you're a fucking madman. But I really don't. I think this is the definitive Splatoon game so far.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching John's video about going back to Splatoon 1, and, there was a lot to that game in terms of, like, the specials and various things that I've not... Specials, the music, the art direction of Splatoon actually has changed quite a bit, subtly over time. And it's actually... John Cartwright made this really amazing video about Splatoon 1, so people should go watch that. But, the one thing I will say is that I don't like the desert, like the desert setting of Splatoon 3 in terms of...
The Splatlands?
Yeah, I don't like the Splatlands in terms of the map design. Like, I play like...
Oh, sure.
Like Hot Tin Alleyway or whatever these maps are called. And I'm like, the underpass map or like the map in the Badlands, like, they don't feel very distinct. That's the one thing I'll say. Like, I play like Mahi Mahi Resort. I'm like, yeah, I'm in a tropical resort right now, Yeah. It feels like a lot of the older stages have a much better defined identity, both in terms of like design gimmick and in terms of just visuals. So the one thing that I'm not pleased about the game is these new maps, to where I would much rather prefer to be playing these ones that are returning, because I think they have stronger visual and design identities than a lot of the new ones. But that's a problem that will hopefully be solved just by getting more. To that point, I am a little bit concerned about the fact that we have gotten basically nothing new. Yeah. Because, like, Splatoon 1, like, a week later, we got the NZAP and we were getting new maps and stuff. So I just hope that this game doesn't end up suffering the way most of Nintendo's games as a service or just online, whatever you want to call it, games have. Because I'm a little bit concerned that this is going to be like a Mario Maker 2 situation where all the good shit comes too late.
Yeesh.
But we'll
it's certainly possible, and that possibility is something I frankly never would have conceded before having to wait this long for anything new for Splatoon 3, because Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 1 both had great post-launch rollouts. So maybe it's just getting started late. That's like my hope. But it's not a good sign.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty to do in the game. Yeah. And even the fact that it's Turf War, Anarchy Series, and Anarchy Single Battles means that there's always 6 stages available, so you can jump between a lot of stuff.
Oh, true.
But it's just like, guys, we gotta get the ball rolling at a certain point. Yeah. We gotta get the ball rolling. Yeah. I mean, we know that they have a
an Octo expansion reference.
Gotta shoot that fucking cue ball.
Gotta get on the 8 ball, whatever.
Yeah, I just hope that gets rolling. But Splatoon 3, let's go to the next game.
It's a great fucking game. All right. I'm gonna just do a rock block here because I gotta power through here. Game Boy.
Yeah. Oh,
I played a lot of fucking Game Boy games since the last episode of Backlog Banter. Because primarily I started with finishing for the first time Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins, which I had played a little bit before and I'd heard people talk about it. And of course, if you're a classic BLB alumnus, you'll know that I played Super Mario Land, I believe, as maybe one of the first ever games we talked about here on this show. And I like Super Mario Land 2 a lot. It's not a hot take. It's a widely acclaimed game. I don't personally prefer it over Super Mario Land, but it is the better game in basically every regard. It's got an overworld that is, I think, frankly, better than any other overworld in Mario. It sort of has this loop-de-loop thing. You can sort of like Mega Man, you can go to the stages in any order you want. The stages have much stronger identity than almost any Mario game. Even talking about Mario Land or Super Mario 3, which does have some interesting ones like Skyworld and Pipe World and stuff like that. But those have become rote over time. But we've never revisited Space World or inside a fucking Turtle World or inside a fucking Mario World ever. And this game has a much stronger identity than almost any other 2D Mario, which I think is really interesting because basically nothing here has ever been retried. Except for Wario.
It's this almost, the way I talk about the game is it's like the spirit of Galaxy in the context of a 2D Mario game. In terms of these level themes.
In the context of like Mario World.
I mean the level themes are just so weird. It's not even that they're not super familiar, they are weird. And even the power-ups they wear, you get like Carrot Mario, or you're wearing like a spacesuit and you're jumping around in space. Or you're going to like the B area that probably influenced Galaxy, or like the Toy Galaxy, which probably produced the Galaxy also.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like there's a spirit of creativity here that to me sets it above most 2D Mario games, just because.
No, absolutely. Which ones would you put above it?
If I can be a cheeky son of a bitch, Mario Maker.
Mario
2.
Maker, yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't put any above it, because what I come to 3D Mario for is creativity and imagination, and what I don't find in 2D Mario to the same degree is creativity and imagination. So that's why, to me, Super Mario Land 2...
Speak my fucking language, man.
That's why, to me, it's the best one, because it's that zaniness, it's that weirdness, it's that spirit that Mario can go meet a fucking hippo and you jump in a snot bubble and fly around in a snot bubble, or get swallowed by a turtle and he shits you into the world, right? Like, that's why I love Mario, and that's why I love 6 golden coins.
Yeah. Boom. Stamp it, send it to fucking Timbuktu. I also played some of the other earliest Game Boy games, primarily Alleyway, which is a Nintendo-published Brick Breaker clone. That's it.
Yeah.
It's fine, but it's a Game Boy Brick Breaker game. If you're going to play Brick Breaker, go play fucking Arcade Arkanoid or any other game that's taking it further in terms of indie games or mobile games or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. I don't need to say much more about Alleyway. You don't need to play it. You probably have played it already, frankly. But I also played Wave Race, which is a game that if you had asked me about like a month and a half ago, I would not have told you existed.
Yeah.
Because this is a game that is just completely lost to the sands of time. There, as we made it our Game Boy, Nobody Cares About the Game Boy, Not Even Nintendo video, which I re-listen to like once a month. Great fucking video. Go watch it. The Game Boy's first party library, outside of a handful of exceptions, has been largely forgotten, as I'm saying, with Alleyway and Wave Race, and as I will get to with Balloon Kid. But this is a great example of that, because you ask the average Joe on the street, you're like, hey, what's the first Wave Race game? First off, they're going to like punch you in the face and walk away. You're a creep. But they're going to say Wave Race 64, and maybe they know that Blue Storm exists, but you know, that's fucking rare.
Yeah.
But the first game was a racing game, a water jet ski racing game on Game Boy. It's not good.
That's not a surprise.
It doesn't control very well. The maps aren't very interesting. You're automatically thrown into a race with 4 other racers that are better than you.
Yeah.
And so you're just like, shit, you're like zooming off track. It's a really strange game. Just the fact that it exists at all on the hardware that it does. It's an impressive game, having 4 racers and being, you know, technically competent in terms of its visuals.
Sure.
But it's a Game Boy racing game, which is already not a great sign, but it's got slippery water controls in a series that had never been tried before, and frankly probably a genre that had never been tried before in terms of jet ski racing. It's a prime example of an old Nintendo oddity.
Yeah.
Like, this exists, and it probably sold, you know, 500,000 copies. Not even that,
no fucking chance.
I was trying to do a low number, but then I realized no chance in hell this is even up there. But it probably sold barely anything. But they give it another shot, and frankly, where you and I played the much better game, Wave Race 64, which is a great game.
Yeah.
So I respect this game, but it's like it's a pass into the wind salute of not actually a good game.
Sure. Keep going.
Balloon Kid. Another completely forgotten fucking game.
Yeah.
Because people might recognize Balloon Fight. There's a stage in Smash. You know, you hear about Iwata making this game. But Balloon Kid it's the better game. It's a Game Boy port, largely, of Balloon Fight, because you have all the modes from Balloon Fight, which is Balloon Trip and just doing the joust-style battle. Those are in this game. But there is also there's a full campaign with a small story of a girl whose brother got taken away on some balloons. She has to fly through the world and dodging enemies and dodging spikes flooding the air. That is good. It's a lot of fun. And it's a much better context to place the, frankly, Flappy Bird-esque gameplay of Balloon Fight into than the sort of Pac-Man wraparound style, popping the balloons of your enemies gameplay of the first one, which you and I did play, and after about 15 minutes, we're like, yep, this is all there is to see. But Balloon Kid, I actually think, still holds up quite a bit to this day.
Yeah, this is what I'd like to try. I've never played it, so I don't have a whole lot to say. So, but I want to see that, because I do think Balloon Fight is fun, and I think that's a cool multiplayer concept. will it hold up for me as a single player concept? I suppose we'll find out. I know you said the campaign's like 45 minutes long, so I'm sure it's not going to not hold my attention. But yeah, I'll give it a try soon.
End of the Game Boy rock block. But we got other rock blocks coming up. Don't you fucking don't wear your little pants.
You want me to throw in a game?
Yeah.
So I did a couple of replays during this period because there's a time when I had finished Last of Us Part 1, I'd finished Splatoon 3, and I'm like, you know that feeling when like you beat a couple games you really were really fucking with, and you're like, I don't know what I want to play now. I'm in this like nebulous period. But that
was me with Bloodborne, and it lasted like a month.
Yeah.
And I just didn't play it.
For me, I use it as an opportunity to go back and replay some games that have been, for me, kind of itching for a replay.
Replaying games. It's our bet. Don't worry, guys. Don't worry, guys.
Yeah, if you'd be so, if you know what, if you oblige me,
I'm fine.
I'm just curious for you to just give for the audience, just so I can hear it again, your statement on replaying games.
I've replayed a handful of games in my life. Primarily, I would play through my older Pokemon games quite frequently, whether that was Ruby or X or Pearl or Platinum. Yeah. And there's a handful of other games that I've gotten most of the way through and then had to replay in order to get to the end, like Mario 3D World, which we talked about in our review, which I got like 75% of the way through and then just never finished, even though that game is like 6 hours long. Yeah. And from my experience of replaying games, and maybe it's the way that I play games or my mindset going in playing games, I've never really found too much more to appreciate. And what I discover when I'm playing games is that I feel like I'm just going through the motions again. It's like, I've seen this already. And frankly, as you can tell from me, trying so many games from my game playing habits, my mindset is always on to moving something new, adding what I've played to my repertoire so I can compare things and notice trends and say, oh, this mechanic moves here, and seeing how the industry evolves. But for me, it's much more important to constantly be trying new things, even if I might not enjoy them, which is why, you look at the games I've played this year ranked, there's a top crust of things I like, but there's just a lot of horse shit. It's a lot of stuff that I think is fine. Yeah. And I can understand why other people like it, but that is where I enjoy playing games the most, is not lingering on them, not spending my time on them, which is why I don't engage in DLC or post-game content. It's the rare exception of something like Odyssey, or 100%ing Ori and the Will of the Wisps, or really digging into Minecraft, of course, when that was a thing, or completing the Pokedex. That games I want to stay in the world of. Even one of my favorite games of all time, like a Xenoblade 2, I spent a lot of time there, but as soon as the credits rolled, boom, I was out. I'm not going back. And so I think I will eventually get to the point where I'm interested in replaying games, where I can look back with 10, 15 years of time gap and much more experience with other games and be like, oh, this is why this is interesting, and I can gain more appreciation from that angle. Yeah. But as it stands, I'm too young of a game player to not remember things. To go back and play something like Super Mario World: A Link to the Past, which of course games people have played hundreds of times. We talked about this last night. Where I would gain a significantly improved experience and notice more nuances that I wasn't able to the first time, which is obviously something that can happen. Yeah. But I don't think my mindset works with that to where when I hear that other people are replaying games, it makes sense. I understand why people would do it, but it puzzles me on a very subjective level because I'm like, there's so much out there that you can do. Go play Balloon Kid. Go try something you've never even heard of before. I just think that you'll come around. Yeah, no, I don't doubt that I will. Because my feeling, and I'm the same way with movies, frankly. Yeah, and for me, the idea of playing a game and on what is almost a principle saying I'm not going to replay it, I'm going to move on to something new, makes games for me too disposable. The reason I said it is because you can't, in my opinion, you cannot understand a game fully playing it one time. Yeah. And if I am to really understand why I love the games I love and get everything out of them, I want to be familiar with them. And I even playing like The Last of Us, right? The Last of Us is a game wherein most of the emotional moments and set pieces are seared in my head. And obviously part one, it's a remake, it's a little bit of a different experience, but it is so faithful that it is ostensibly a prettier replay of Last of Us, right? When you boil it down to its most basic components, the emotional experience is replaying The Last of Us.
But there is so much to appreciate and understand on a nuanced level about how characters operate and sort of what they're saying and sort of what a sequence means emotionally that you miss the first time around because you're focused on a larger experience. But on a replay, you can focus on the minutia more. It's why I replay Halo games, because Halo Combat Evolved on the first playthrough, I felt to an extent similar to you of, the game is old, the game is this is clunky, that is clunky. And when I replay, I'm like, this is clunky, that is clunky, but this is why that's clunky. And when I really get into it, I'm like, now I understand what weapon type is useful where and how all of these tools are designed against each other.
Sure.
And the example I have this week, I've got two. The first is Sonic Mania. Replaying Sonic Mania was such an important experience because in the time gap between my first playthrough of Sonic Mania and this playthrough, I have
played the other Sonic games.
Played some more Sonic games to where the experience is remarkably more resonant now that I can say, here are where these zones come from. Here are how these zones were iterated upon to become better. And this is why Sonic Mania is a real treasure, because it is a celebration of nuance that I now understand.
Of course,
I partially understand because I've played Chemical Plant Zone multiple times. I beat Sonic 2 twice just this year, right? And then I played it again in Sonic Mania. And when you start to stack that, I gain a much, for me personally as a player, and as somebody who's quite interested, of all facets of gaming, design is what interests me the most. And design is learned through repetition. And so the more times I traverse Chemical Plant Zone in various games, is the more I can understand it. And I just understand Sonic a lot better now. So playing Sonic Mania was a real treat. Seeing what did they do to evolve facets of Sonic that needed evolution, be it boss fights, be it smoothing over certain frustrating design decisions in these past zones. I see the under the surface mastery. Because what's my first playthrough of Sonic Mania about? How beautiful the aesthetic is, how great the soundtrack is, how fun and colorful the general platform experience is. But the second one was about design and about stage transitions and individual gimmicks and how Sonic moves through environments. And to me, that is like an unmissable experience. That's an experience I only got because I replayed Sonic Mania. And now I think Sonic Mania, with the exception of the last zone, which I don't like and I don't think is good.
What's the last zone?
I forget what it's called, but you're going through it's this lavish, Robotnik, like almost carnival village. And then you fight this final boss, and he's like electrified. He's got all these fucking tentacles, and it's just very annoying. I think the last zone of the game is very annoying.
That's a Sonic staple, though, is the final boss just being stupid.
It is, but the reason it's even more annoying is because the boss fights are so much better designed and more interesting in Mania.
I absolutely agree. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm just saying, hey, maybe they're trying to stay true to Sonic 1 through 3, where I hate those final bosses, basically all of them. But I think that you bring up an interesting point, which I think does still fit in with what I'm saying. It is the fact that you didn't return to Mania right away. You wouldn't have been able to learn a lot of these things if you hadn't gone and tried other games first. And I think that that's the context that my mindset is mostly focused on, is playing these other games. So when I do replay games, which is coming, I will replay Last of Us 2. I will replay Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I have a different context, different mindset, not only through time passing, but through a richer breadth of experience to make connections like that. I'm sure if I replayed Sonic Mania, I would appreciate these zones a lot better and these design decisions, because I've played those games now. But not simply because I'm replaying the game, but because I have that context. And the context for me is more important than the replay, which is why I find it interesting that you are able to, and I don't doubt that you do this genuinely, but replay Halo 1 within a year or so of playing. But also, you played the other Halo games in between there. So I do think that maybe that is where replays from different contexts allow you to have a deeper understanding rather than simply the replay itself. Because I think that is something that is where I get I feel like I'm just going through the motions again, is it's only when I have a different mental context of other games to where I'm really able to appreciate a game on a replay.
I mean, and inherently, you're going to have played something between when you play a game for the first time and replay, so obviously you can bring in new context, but that's not even what I mean necessarily. Replaying Combat Evolved is most useful because when you replay the game in the context of itself, you start to recognize how it loops back on, and you begin in the Pillar of Autumn, you end in the Pillar of Autumn. You realize that stuff because you play Combat Evolved more, not because I've played 7 Halo games, or between Halo 1 returning back to Combat Evolved. There is a base level necessity, in my opinion, for really getting into the fucking the cock and balls of design to replay it for the sake of itself. And obviously you have the added context, and that context makes the replay even richer. But the goal of a replay is to enrich your understanding of games in the first place. So the context is great, but it's feeling those mechanics twice. I mean, I can't see, for me, the idea of replaying a game be going through the motions, because games are not designed to be played once and to be dropped. I mean, the best games of all time are, and Tony Grayson was talking about this on Twitter, and I agree with him 100%. Replayability is not about having a lot of things to do after you beat the game.
Yeah.
Replayability is designing a game that is so tight and so fun that the act of playing it twice is replayability.
Sure. Yeah.
The reason that a lot of old platformers are so replayable is because it just feels great to move in them. Yeah. Odyssey is a replayable game, not because there are 900 moons, but because Mario feels so good.
Of course. Yeah.
So that's when replayability is a sign of a game being designed well and fun multiple times, in my opinion. Yeah. So the context is a valuable part of replaying, but it's the act of connecting with mechanics that are really, really good. That is why you replay games.
No, I think that a synergy of what we're both saying is probably the healthiest way to approach video games. Of taking some time to replay some things, taking some time to go explore some other stuff. And of course, I'm not saying you don't explore other stuff,
I play a lot of games.
But I think this is a really interesting conversation to have. And I do think that, again, the truth lies between the two of us. I recognize that my thought process is not infallible, and I'm sure I would gain some appreciation from replaying games. But frankly, I do have an aversion to that, because from my experience, I haven't gained that much. And the perspective that we each bring to this, the nuanced perspective of you being able to gain some things from this, me not having gained much from my replays, it does really fuel like where we're going when we play games. Sure. Because I don't play games for the gameplay a lot of the time. And that's just a very different game design philosophy that you and I have always been on separate tracks, whereas we'll probably get to with some other games that we've played here today. Yeah. When I'm playing Super Mario World again, I would be like, I've seen this before. I know how to get over this. Like, controlling Mario, sure, it's fun, but I know what to do already. I've already seen this map, so why bother? At least in my experience. But again, we can move on to something else. A very good conversation, though. I'll allow that. I'll allow you to share your opinion sometimes.
Let me just keep it thematic for a minute. I'll just also talk about my other replay.
Okay.
And this was Metroid Zero Mission.
Oh yeah.
Metroid Zero Mission is a perfect game. Metroid Zero Mission is a perfect game. I think so. Here's my feeling on it. I moved it up to my number 2 favorite Metroid game.
Behind Dread.
And Dread, I'm actually going to replay Dread. If not this week, probably next week. John Cartwright said on Twitter, it's time for everybody to replay Dread. I'm like, I just replayed Zero Mission.
Did you see my reply to that?
Yes, and then your picture, great picture. Well done. Yeah. Well done.
I said, John, I want to play Bayonetta 2 before Bayonetta 3 comes out. And he's like, just play on 2 Switches at once. And I said, okay, that can be arranged. And I had Sam take a picture of me holding 2 Switches like that.
Yeah. But I think what's so great about Zero Mission and why I think you can almost view it as maybe the pinnacle of pre-Mercury Steam 2D Metroid. The reason I make that distinction is because Mercury Steam made Samus's movement and the tempo of the gameplay so much different. The games they're not action platformers, but they're way closer to that in terms of feel. And even though Fusion is basically an action platformer, it is way closer in control and ethos to like Zero Mission and stuff than it is to Dread in a lot of ways. I think that might be a little too semantical, but the point is, of the Metroid games of a similar era, I think that you can view Zero Mission as probably the best, because the game is
not sure how many people would agree with you. Also, I have not played Zero Mission, so I cannot make my personal claim.
I don't care. I don't care at all what other people have to say. They're not on backlog banter.
That's a great point.
I think the reason it's a pinnacle is because it's this really short distillation. The game is not very long, couple hours long, 3 hours, 4 hours maybe, and it just sort of it takes you through the Metroid beats in a really satisfying way. You're going through obviously the map of Metroid 1, but retooled and reconsidered, and it flows really nicely. The game subtly sort of prods you along from Chozo statue to Chozo statue, but it's never as hand-holdy maybe as Fusion is or whatever. Yeah. You still feel like every decision you make is your own, but it's not a game you can really get stuck in. It finds, like Mercury Steam's games, finds a nice balance between making you lost and making you found, to where you're always riding that line in a compelling way. But it's the polish of the package that makes it quite excellent. You're getting the Metroid items, you're doing the Metroid things, you're finding the missile tanks, you're fighting the bosses, you're backtracking, but then they do the flip on you, and then they do the let's take it from great to amazing, and throw you in the suit, in the shoes, and in the body suit of Zero Suit Samus, right? Mm-hmm. And I find this section to be really, really compelling in the fact that I rescind what I said about the distinction between like actions and all of this, because I think what's good about Zero Mission is that last section really is just an action game. It's like stealth action, and that's quite interesting. It's more Metal Gear than it is Metroid even. Mm-hmm. And the sort of the power curve of Samus arrives on planet weak. Samus grows strong. Samus defeats Mother Brain. Samus is shot down and in the Zero Suit. You learn more about Samus as a character. You have to recontextualize your relationship to the world. You get powerful again. You blast off. You defeat Ridley again and you escape. That curve, that sine wave of power is really great. And it's better than how other Metroidvanias, other Metroid games handle it, of Samus arrives powerful. Samus loses her power. Samus regains her power. That still happens here, but that it's that growth up to power and then losing it at the 11th hour and then regaining it for the 12th that makes it feel really satisfying and so frustrating. I'm like, fuck, I'm down to the Zero Suit, but now I gotta use everything I've learned to get all my shit back. Yeah. And it just is tight. It's beautiful. It doesn't sound good, but no GBA game sounds good because that sound chip is horse shit.
I love me some GBA music sometimes. That synthesized trumpet, like, throw your mind back to like Route 10 or 203 or whatever it is from Hoenn, and like it's like got this really weird, like, sounds like it's come from another room, like being played in a can. I don't know. I certainly have nostalgia for the Ruby and Sapphire soundtrack, but that's basically my only rebuttal. And I kind of like that soundtrack.
I tweeted it, and I'll repeat it here. I'd never accuse the GBA of having a good sound chip, and that's always my biggest issue with most GBA games. But no, I just think that they got everything right in this, because by this point they had already made Fusion, right? Yeah. And so returning to Metroid 1 with the lessons learned from Super and Fusion, and even Metroid 2, I suppose, resulted in just such a...
What do you mean you suppose? They made Metroid 2. It informed design decisions in the future games.
Yeah, but Metroid 2 is its own fucking kit and caboodle. Yeah. But like they took everything they knew, and they ended the classic Metroid pre-2D hiatus. Yes. With this sort of amalgamation of all the lessons learned, the cinematic techniques taken from Fusion, and a lot of the quality of life that accrued across the series, and it's just perfect. I don't think the game has any issues, aside from the sound chip, but they can't control that.
Yeah, I will play that game eventually. Yeah. It's the... No, I guess I still need to play Samus Returns to a significant degree, but it's the only early 2D Metroid that is not a remake, or that is... Fuck. I want to play that game. Shall I go somewhere next?
Sure.
Let's go to two other NES games that I played. We're not going to be talking about Kid Icarus here, because our discussions about Kid Icarus and Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters are coming in their own video down the pipe. Nice sigh for comedic effect there.
Kid Icarus sucks. Next game.
But I played Yoshi's Cookie. Because if you know me, you know I play some puzzle games sometimes. I don't play it for very long, but I find them interesting because it's such a prolific genre in the NES era, early Super Nintendo era. Yeah. And this is an interesting game because it's not an NSL.
Right.
As we did the research last night, Nintendo does not own the rights to Yoshi's Cookie and has almost never bothered to even try re-releasing the game, getting the rights.
Yeah.
Some other fucking company has the rights to this game. It was not on Wii U Virtual Console, even though it was planned to be on Wii U Virtual Console. It was on the Wii shop, but it was taken down super early. It has never been on NSO. It probably will never be on NSO.
Yeah.
And this is it's a fine puzzle game. You mention cookies, and that's about it. And it's got a Yoshi on the side. I don't have too much to say about it. I didn't like it a lot. Like, I really resonated with Yoshi.
As most people do.
The game Yoshi, the character Yoshi, I can take or leave. I think he's fine. But Yoshi's Cookie is another one of those historical curiosities in that it is a Nintendo game. It's got Yoshi on the cover. It's a puzzle game, so it has nothing to do with Yoshi. Like Wario's Woods has nothing to do with Wario. Like Kirby Star Stacker has nothing to do with Kirby. But the fact that this game has not been re-released because Nintendo just whatever fucking reason doesn't own the rights to it. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, we were talking about this last night. This only re-releases a full visual remake of the game for Nintendo Puzzle Collection on GameCube. But there was that era where Nintendo was really trying to like rebottle that Tetris Lightning.
Yeah,
and
everyone was.
Everybody, yeah.
Yeah.
But especially Nintendo, they're like, how many mascot puzzlers can we make? The answer is
a lot. Especially Kirby ones.
Yeah.
But the other NES game I wanted to quickly talk about is Dig Dug 2, Trouble in Paradise. Which is a game I didn't know existed till I saw it on NSO.
Yeah.
And it's nothing like Dig Dug. Because you're not digging.
Cool.
You are on an island.
Yeah.
And there are Dig Dug enemies. You got the little pukas, you got the little fire-breathing green guys, and they're walking around, and you get your pump, and you stick it into a hole in the ground, and you pump, and you build a crack. And you're trying to build cracks so that chunks of the island fall off into the water. Yeah. With the enemies on it. So the only way to defeat enemies, you can shoot your pump into them and pop them like you do in... Stop making faces! Like you do in the original Dig Dug. But that's essentially the only gameplay tenet that remains. And I like this game. I don't think it's amazing, but it's one of those early continuations of a franchise that just says, yeah, we'll take one basic idea, but just try something completely different with it. And I think that's really cool. And also there is a video by Golden Bolt, I believe, which is like History of Dig Dug. This is the most influential Dig Dug game because they've actually barely ever returned to the original Dig Dug formula, but the overworld and the pumping and the taking chunks and moving into the ground, into the water, has been reused in even the Japanese-only Dig Dug MMO, which existed. But yeah, it's an interesting game. Check it out on NSO. I think it is worth playing. But it's just a lot of people don't like this game, but I think it's kind of fun. Ask your average Joe on the street, what do you think of Dig Dug 2 Trouble in Paradise? And he's like, oh, this game fucking sucks. I really wish it retained the design tenets of the original Dig Dug in the arcade.
Tucker, I have Uno, Dos, Trace. I've got 3 games, and then we share Overwatch. So how many games do you have?
1, 3, 5.
I want to add one more thing about Zero Mission I forgot to say. Because I've been... Here's the thing about me sometimes. Sometimes I talk, I'm really beating myself up because I feel like I did a bad job explaining what I was trying to say.
Sure, you did fine.
But let me just circle back for a second. Here's what I'm trying... 30-second thesis statement about Metroid Zero Mission to clear my conscience of feeling I did a bad job. Mercury Steam made Metroid about movement and about certain things. So when I think about classic Metroid, I think of Zero Mission as the best classic Metroid. Mm-hmm. Because I just think that it does everything so right. And I'm looking at Samus in the background. And I just love Samus. I think the game makes you love Samus in a really cool way, taking her out of the suit, putting her in a Zero suit. I think that's so fun. And I think you're really going to like how this game, obviously not very story heavy, but complicates her character a little bit more and sort of asks you to learn a little bit about maybe who Samus is. And you get more out of the tie-in manga that released and everything. But I really think that you will enjoy the brevity, the map design, the sort of lore complications and gameplay ideas of Zero Mission. So I really can't wait for you to play it. I think you'll actually like that. I think you'll like that more than Fusion. I think you'll like it more than Super.
It's certainly possible. I like Fusion quite a bit.
Yeah, it takes a lot of sort of Fusion cinematics and the idea of Adam as a progression guardrail and sort of opens it up a little bit, but not too open to where oh, what's going on?
Yeah.
Okay, I feel better. I can talk about a new game now.
Well, hold on. I've got more games than you. Should I go again?
Oh, how many games do you have?
Like 5 or 6?
Oh, yeah, you should go again.
Let's...
Keep talking about Bayonetta. I want to talk about Bayonetta.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we're going out of order here. Taking the train, put on a different track. Just go beep, beep, beep. Bayonetta 2. Yeah. I played Bayonetta 2 in 24 hours. Because this is not a long game. In fact, it's shorter than the first game, which... Thank you, Kamiya. Even though he wasn't the director of this game, he was a lead designer, executive producer, whatever. Thank you, Kamiya, for making this game shorter than Bayonetta 1. Because I think that is one of the elements that I will say puts it very clearly above Bayonetta 1, because I like these two games just about the same. And I think they're both good, and I enjoy them. But I think playing 2 Bayonetta games and coming up having played 3, I'm recognizing that the beat 'em up gameplay and the focus on cinematics is cool, but I don't know if it really appeals to me. I like it, but I don't love it, because what I found with Bayonetta 2, and maybe it was playing it in such a condensed time frame, maybe it was playing it on lower difficulty, so I wasn't really being pushed back against, which is something I'd play in a lot of games. But is that the constant go nature of Bayonetta 2 made me feel like someone was playing loud music in my ear at full volume for 6 hours. And it was good music. I enjoyed that good music, but there's very little ebb and flow with Bayonetta 2. There are much less open world areas in this, in terms of being able to go around a corner and find something than there were in Bayonetta 1. And the spectacle, the set pieces, the cinematics are so prevalent here, and on, frankly, the same level of crazy horseshit nonsense, that it doesn't really feel like much grows or changes from beginning to end, because you're seeing crazy angel horseshit, demon horseshit, blowing up a town and flipping upside down in the sky at the beginning of the game and at the end of the game. And I think that lack of progression is maybe why I'm less glowing about this game than other people are. I enjoy the spectacle, I enjoy the cinematics, but the fact there is very little, if any, downtime between these crazy set piece cinematic moments definitely is a missed opportunity for me, because I feel like I learned less about Bayonetta as a character in this game than I did in 1. Her bond with Luca and Cereza is a lot more apparent in the first game than Luca returning here for a handful of moments, but he just kind of shows up as a story progression point. And Loki is fine. I don't know. The story I found to be slightly weaker than the first one. The spectacle and the conceptual craziness is better than the first one. I'm sure the gameplay is improved, but not enough for me to be like, oh yeah, you gotta play this one over the first one. But I still like this game. I just think that it is flawed in some ways, that some of them come from this not quite being my jam, but also in ways that I think hopefully are improved with the sequel, of giving more downtime to learn about Bayonetta as a person and between these crazy set piece moments, so that it doesn't feel like you're going at full blast for straight through the entire game. Yeah,
I think just like that's why it's good, because it's a condensed, spectacle driven character action game. Sure. And, so I played Bayonetta 2 before Bayonetta 1, and I never finished Bayonetta 1 because, brother man, let me tell you something, I don't know what the story of Bayonetta is. I don't care what the story of Bayonetta is. I'm here because I think Bayonetta is hot and cool, and the gameplay is awesome.
Sure.
And so...
Well, I disagree with most of those things, so...
well, here's where I come down on it, right? For me, when I played Bayonetta 1, I was like, how many puzzles do you want me to... How many, traversal puzzles do you want me to try to do and all of that?
I like those puzzles. That's the downtime that I was hoping for out of this game.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, are you here to play Bayonetta because you want a combo-driven character action game, or are you here to play it for more of the narrative and the adventure, right? Mm-hmm. And the adventure definitely is bigger in Bayonetta 1. It's clear as the day is long that by merit of being a Wii U game, Nintendo didn't put a lot of budget into this one. You can see it in the cutscenes. I mean, a lot of the cutscenes are
I didn't talk about that, but the fucking clock cutscenes where you've got most of the frame covered up by like a clock frame and then this clock hand passes by between freeze frames, that drove me fucking bananas. Not because that there were like freeze frame cutscenes, because those were in the first one, and I hope they're not in 3 because it does feel like a lack of budget, but the fact that a clock was like covering most of the screen, it felt like I had to look through one of those fucking pure hole things, like look off into the distance. I'm like, fucking just get out of the way, clock. I want to see what they're doing.
Yeah, it very clearly is the fact that Bayonetta 2 did not get funded. Who came in? Nintendo. And what did Nintendo not have? A lot of money. What did Nintendo not have to fund an M-rated character action game for the Wii U in 2014? A big budget, right? And so you can feel that. But I think ultimately why Bayonetta 2, in my opinion, and in the opinion of people like Daniel Navarolo, who says it's one of the very best games of all time, is like. Mm-hmm. As far as character action spectacle goes, they get it down to a fucking science.
Yeah, of course.
And what Bayonetta 2 does really well is that I am not good at character action at all. Mm-hmm. But with witch time and a lot of the structure of the game, it's understandable to where if you're playing at that baseline normal regular difficulty, you're going to be challenged, but you're going to be able to do it. You don't need to be able to perform insane combos. Wherein to a point like playing DMC 3, I can't really play DMC3 because you need to be able to combo in that way.
Yeah.
And so if you look at Bayonetta 2 as a 6-hour hit of dopamine, you sit down for 3 hours one night, sit down for 3 hours the next night,
that's what I did.
You've cleared the game, then it's perfect in that context. In the context of let's give you amazing spectacle and polish and deep mechanics that are nonetheless still understandable and empowering for players at any skill level across the character action spectrum.
Yeah.
And I just don't think Bayonetta 2 can be beaten unless maybe by DMC5, because DMC5 is just a fucking awesome game.
And these are the only character action games that I've put significant time into. I played like the first 20 minutes of God of War 1 on PS2 like 7 years ago, but it's not a genre that I'm particularly experienced in, but it's also not one that like instantly appeals to me, like, oh, I want to learn these combos, I love this spectacle. I like it, I think it's interesting, but I do think that there is something to be said for it being a 6-hour game, which is short for a game. It is shorter than the first one. I really do appreciate that, as I said, but there being a sense of ebb and flow in terms of progression and pacing that this game throws out the window for that shot of dopamine, which I understand the appeal for. But I love Avengers Endgame. But I don't love Avengers Endgame because that last action set piece is awesome. It's because there is set piece, there's downtime for the characters to flourish, to learn a little bit more about them, and then feel the tension and the spectacle rise up when you're thrown back into one of these crazy set pieces. If Avengers Endgame was 3.5 hours of that last action set piece, I would not like that movie. And I like Bayonetta for the little world a lot more than you do. And these characters, I think there's concepts there's ideas, the friendship between Bayonetta and Jean, and Enzo being funny, and Rodin showing up. These things I think are better handled in Bayonetta 1 because there is that downtime. There is the time for Bayonetta and Cereza to have a conversation without the weight of the world pressing down on them and then being thrown straight into something crazy. I think that pacing is something that is important to having a dopamine-filled experience feel more rewarding, because I feel like I wasn't rewarded with a dopamine. It was just like default is the dopamine. I'm like, okay, tone it back a little bit.
I think it just depends on an expectation of why you're coming to a character action game. Because I think Platinum said that the people play these games for spectacle combat. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of shit that wasn't spectacle combat in Bayonetta 1. Yeah. And we probably had we don't have clearly a big budget for Bayonetta 2. So what are we going to do? We're going to double down on what makes this genre perennial, and it is the combat. Yeah. And I think actually I'm going to recommend you play Astral Chain, and you can download this off my account, because Astral Chain, to me,
I have Astral Chain physically. I bought that day one.
How far did you get in Astral Chain? Did you beat it?
4 hours.
Yeah, I think you should go back to Astral Chain now that you've played some Bayonetta. Obviously, you got Bayonetta 3, so, this is a long-term recommendation.
Yeah. But I want to play Astral Chain. I was thinking about that on the toilet yesterday.
Yeah, I think that game is so fucking boring because Astral Chain is just character and walking around, and the combat... To me, the combat in Astral Chain is so simple. But for your engagement in Platinum's world building and the flashiness, I think you might like Astral Chain, frankly, more than any of the Bayonetta games.
It's certainly possible.
But yeah, I think that Bayonetta 2, what it did was settle into its niche the way that Doom 2016 found its niche, you know? And so I totally get the comparison to something like Endgame, but I just don't think that it's a one-to-one comparison when there is a genre intent. Same way as there's genre intent in Doom 2016 to say we are making an arcadey, combat-fueled experience, and they made it the right length. You sit down for 2 days to play Bayonetta 2. So.
And I did. And it's over with, and I liked the game.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what Bayonetta 3 does, how it modernizes after almost a decade since 2. I think I really could like that game if they modernize it with more time, with more budget, with a fresher set of eyes, different games in between. I think that game could be very good. And I think maybe on default I'm like expecting it to be my favorite of the 3 because again I like the first 2 games, but after playing the 2 of them within a couple months span and realizing my problems with Bayonetta 3 or 2, I've sort of retroactively disliked Bayonetta 1 more, but I understand the appeal, but it's a whole thing that I have to sit with. I only beat this game last night, so I haven't really thought about this too much. But that was my thesis statement was the dopamine thing, was the adrenaline rush, was the at top level all the time, which I do see as a criticism of this game. And levy it against budget if you want, but I do think that there's a better Bayonetta where there are more thought out world puzzles, where there is more time to sit between those action set pieces, to where it is longer, but it feels like a more of a rewarding and well-paced experience.
I think it just depends on what you mean by reward, because why do people love Bayonetta 2 is because they can get so up the ass that combo system that that is the reward. And for most people, that is the reward. And I think just Bayonetta 2 was Platinum saying, we are good at character action, let's make a character action game for character action fans. Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see how Bayonetta 3 responds to that. And previews just actually came out this morning, and they're very good.
Oh, did they? Okay, great.
Which is nice because I don't like most games Platinum makes. Yeah. I'm even, as you are indifferent to Bayonetta 2 to a certain degree, I am indifferent to Bayonetta 1. So there is a chance that Bayonetta 3 is like, yeah, it's cool, but I don't know. Just because, Platinum, what has Platinum done this year? Fucked up Babylon's Fall. What have they done recently? Made Astral Chain, which I didn't like. You know what I mean? Like, it'll just be really interesting to see where on the fucking spectrum of Platinum games 3 is going to fall. But
definitely an interesting studio.
I think they know that Bayonetta 3 needs to be amazing, and I think it's going to be. Mm-hmm. Why don't I talk about a Platinum game?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm playing Nier Automata. I bought it on Switch. It left Game Pass, and then I was like, where am I going to enjoy the game most? Probably going to be on Switch. And I was reading, somebody wrote this up, and I agree with it 100%. The game looks better on Switch than it looks on PlayStation because Nier Automata looks bad. Sure. You know what I mean? Like, the lack of texture.
There's not the craziest texture work in that game.
Yeah, the lack of texture density or like environmental complexity of the geography and everything makes the game makes it seem like more of a fish out of water playing it on a Series console than it does on Switch. But that's neither here nor there. The point is it runs very well on the handheld. I think Nier Automata is really cool.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I'm further, but not that far. I played probably 4 hours. The game came out last weekend. I was away for the weekend, so I was playing it a little bit. I tried to play it in the car, but the sun, it was in the window, and I could not see anything happening. So I played like 4 hours of the game.
If only the Switch was backlit.
You would think that, but like it doesn't matter. The point is,
I'm just fucking with you.
Nier is just, I really love what it's like. I love all of the shit going on. It's a game that has so many pieces. There's so many moving parts in here. You're playing it, and almost, this is going to be a weird comparison, but almost in the way that Super Mario Galaxy will seamlessly move you from 2D to 3D in the context of a level. Nier Automata does a very similar thing with its camera, but it also at times flips it down to where you're doing almost twin stick shmup stuff or just top down action. And it sort of keeps simple combat quite dynamic. At the same time, it's throwing you into this world that has such amazing world building. Mm-hmm. I stopped right before like the carnival when I played Nier for the first time.
That's a good area.
And
I stopped like maybe 2 areas after that.
Yeah, I
didn't get too far in the game either.
Sure, getting into the carnival and learning more about the robots. I think the game is very unsubtle in what it's saying. I'm sure that its message will be complicated the more I play it, but it's very unsubtle in the these robots, they're just saying random stuff, right? No, they have feelings. They're fucking. They're going to the carnival. They've got kids. They got a village. I get it, but I still like it.
There are so. I mean, I don't know that much about the game, but there's so many fucking twists coming your way.
Yeah.
No, that is not the. It is not going to be saying that for another 6 hours, 7 hours, whatever, how long you have left.
But yeah, so I'm really. The game is really capturing my imagination in a way that a lot of games don't really anymore, because it's this sort of feeling of like, oh, I've seen this before. I know what we're doing here, right? And obviously Nier Automata is like Drakengard 97 or whatever, right? But to me, as for most people, Nier Automata is the beginning of a series and a movement.
Yes, of course.
And this is...
like Persona 5.
Right. You know, you say that, but it's true.
Yeah, no, I meant it.
Yeah, the success of these games have just dwarfed everything that came before it to such a degree.
Yeah.
I think that this is the other good Platinum game.
Interesting.
And so...
well, I mean, I don't disagree. I haven't beaten the game, so it's definitely a game I would like to give a second shot. Yeah. And I'm sort of reframing this in my replay mindset of when I think about playing Nier Automata. Yeah. I am most interested in seeing the game to the end, understanding this meta commentary, the things that people love so much about this game with its world building and having those twists. But I am dreading starting this game again because it means I have to play the first fucking 5 hours again, and I've already seen all this shit. I know what fucking happens, and oh god damn it, I've seen this animation before. I've seen this set piece. That is turning me away from it in a way that, I mean, I probably still have my save, so I could probably just go back. Sure, but also I would want to replay it again. So
that's one day of your life. That's one afternoon. If you want to get, here's my feeling about it, because I go back to games and sometimes I jump back in the middle, sometimes I just restart them. Yeah, same here. But the feeling is like, if you're going to love a game, or you really want to give it the time of day, playing it in that sequence is probably worth doing. Yeah. And 4 hours of gameplay,
however much it was I played, I don't fucking remember.
Brother, man, you played like 20 hours of that David Cage game in one sitting. You can get back through 4 hours.
That was a good game. That's a game I liked. Well, yeah, but again, this is interesting. The Platinum Games thing, of the spectacle, of the action, I did not like Nier's gameplay. Almost at all. I found it really uninteresting. And I think that was one of my first blush at character action.
It's very simple.
Yeah, that really turned me away. I want to play this game because I want to love the lore, I want to love the world, I want to love the twists at the end and all, which I only kind of know what they are, maybe. But not the gameplay, like at all. And I don't know.
Then I don't know. Then don't play it.
I don't know, but I want to. But I play a lot of games I don't fucking care about. It's tough.
You got so many other games to play.
I do.
And you got you know what? You got Bayonetta, you play Bayonetta, maybe you take some time, maybe you log into my Xbox account and you try Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, maybe you fucking play Astral Chain first. Vanquish, yeah, I've got Vanquish
Wonderful 101, which I've got over there.
God, yeah, I just don't like these games. I just don't think these games are very good. It's for the most part. Even Vanquish is fun, but Vanquish is just so repetitive.
Yeah, just like Bayonetta 2. Can I move on to something else, or you still want to talk Nier?
No, that's
or even wait till you've played more and experienced more. A game that I had played maybe the first level or two of, but I have since beaten, is one of the games of all time. And playing through this game, I was much better able to appreciate why people think it's so distinct than I, frankly, would have thought beforehand. But Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, is... if you want to count it as, I would say it's the best 2D Mario that I've played. Of course, it's not a Mario game. You're playing as Yoshi. That drastically changes things. But being positioned as a sequel to Super Mario World, so much better than Super Mario World. Oh my god, I like it so much more. I think that this is a game that feels out of time in terms of what I love about more modern games, about more modern game design tenets. This game does not feel old in the way that some of those earlier Mario games do, even to some extent Super Mario World, because there's such a focus on creativity here in a way that Super Mario World was no one ever really thought to put in there, of having Yoshi transform into a helicopter and having Baby Mario gain a cape and run up walls, and having the gameplay feel more fluid in terms of you having more interaction with the world of popping these floating balloons and throwing the eggs and collecting things. There's such an interesting focus on completion here, of getting that 100, of keeping Baby Mario's health at 30, or your timer at 30, getting all the red coins, getting all the flowers, and almost every level having a unique gimmick that makes them stand out from the rest, which is something that I have a big problem with these earlier Mario games of, is a lot of the levels feel basically the same. But when you're playing the Yoshi Island level with the chains of swinging monkeys, that's the level with the chains of swinging monkeys.
Yeah.
Or there's all sorts of gimmicks that this game tries that I think, even if not all of them are amazing, it makes most of the levels stand out. And probably some of the best pixel art that's ever been done.
Yeah.
The pastel crayon-drawn aesthetic makes this game look so much better than almost any other game from its era. The animations are insane in terms of using slight Mode 7 effects of spinning things and making things go wow, wow. It's a beautiful game. It plays amazingly well. It has such a great personality, great music, lots of fun little characters. And it's going to sound crazy, I think it's too long. It's like a 6-hour game, 5-hour game, something like that in terms of my completion. But there are some levels in the later worlds that I'm like, I feel like I've seen this before. If you had just cut this and ended it slightly earlier, I think I would have been more satisfied. But as it stands, still a great game, an amazing game. But I think it sees itself through slightly too many times. I'm like, damn, if this had just been shaved, tighten it up a little bit. That would have been great.
Yeah, I have a hard time comparing Yoshi's Island to other 2D Mario games. It's sort of in the similar way that I don't really do it for Wario Land either, just because I think it's more weird marketing than a sign of continuity that this game is called.
True.
Mario Land 2.
Because it's also a prequel.
Yeah, it's very weird. But no, I'm right
and
there.
And canonically, Mario and Luigi have parents and they're twins, which no one talks about. They're twins?
I think
what?
I'm not a Mario lorehead, but I think it's disputed whether or not this game is even actually canon.
Oh, interesting. Sure.
But
there's also Yoshi's New Island and Yoshi's Island DS, which are like all similar games and tell a similar story. So who the fuck knows?
Yoshi's Island DS is a funny game. That's one of the first games I had when I was a kid, and it's kind of cool actually because you have different babies who do different stuff. Like yeah. So it's
Baby Donkey Kong,
Baby Peach. Yeah, I remember liking it. I don't know how good the game actually is, but no, Yoshi's Island is just a wonderful game. It's a great game. It's just this sort of like it's got a childlike demeanor about it that I love from literally, but from the aesthetic to the sort of spirit of play and gimmick and level gimmicks and even things just like jumping on chains of monkeys, right? Yeah, it's very cute and it's very smart and it is a timeless game. So
it really is, and in a way that I think I have a hard time seeing what other people see in other of the great quote unquote SNES games. I liked Super Metroid, I liked Donkey Kong Country, I liked Link to the Past, I liked Super Mario World. These are good games, but I do think that they still retain some design tenets of older game design that leaves me wanting. But I did not feel that with Yoshi's Island. This is like, aside from Final Fantasy VI, which I think is another game that feels out of time, way ahead of its time, this is the first Super Nintendo game that I've been like, oh wow, they're really on to something here. Like, I respect Super Metroid and Link to the Past, but I don't love those games. Like, I really like this game, and it appeals more to a modern design sensibility than I think those other games do.
Yeah, it's an all-timer.
It's a fucking great game. God damn, great game.
Let's talk about another game with beautiful 4th-gen pixel art. Oifwoim Jim.
Oh, Oifwoim Jim.
Yes.
Yeah, you know Jim. We all know Jim.
On a whim, I played Earthworm Jim. A little bit of a rhyme for you. This game is so. This game, I struggle to think of many games that have frustrated me more than Earthworm Jim. I mean, there is some horse shit in this game. Because here's the interesting about Earthworm Jim. I was not that familiar with how Earthworm Jim actually plays. Mm-hmm. And as you play the first mission, what it seems to be is, it's a run and gun, right? You're doing some platforming, you're doing some shooting, you're fighting some bosses. JFK loves it. I like doing a little bit of JFK voice sometimes.
Oh, okay. There's not some lore there that I'm missing. No, he was dead.
JFK died 30 years before this game came out. And then you go into the second stage.
I should have thought about that.
And the second stage is kind of labyrinthine, but it's kind of the same idea. But I forgot to tell you something. Between the two stages, you play... You know the special stages from Sonic 2 where you're like running down the tube?
Yeah, the half pipe.
Yeah, the half pipe. You're basically doing that, but you're Earthworm Jim on a rocket racing some guy. So, like, okay, a little bit of variety there, but, level 1, level 2, largely the same. And then the game is just like, fuck it. You're doing underwater mazes in a submarine with limited tanks of air, and if you touch the wall, your glass bubble explodes and you die. You're doing a mission where you're fucking bungee jumping down a crevasse with a guy made out of snot, and you have to knock him into the wall to break his bungee cord. You're doing a mission where you're escorting a little dog, but the dog can't jump, so you have to hit the dog to make the dog jump over gaps, but if the dog falls in a gap or touches anything, the dog turns into a big monster and kills you. You're doing this part where you're flying down a chasm about this thick and it's covered in spikes everywhere. It feels like at a certain point the game is just antagonizing you.
Sure.
And the last area of the game is even called Buttville. Like, they don't give a fuck, right? The game is so aggressively against the player.
Sure.
And it's a game of incredible variety, but it's a game that is like, what new idea can we implement that's going to make you mad? The difficulty curve in this game is so poor. But as we talk about some of these games,
is it an Earthworm Jim reference?
Rewind can kind of be a salve on some of these issues. I thought I was going to break Rewind. I was using Rewind so much in Earthworm Jim. So the game is still perennially frustrating, but being able to use that to limp along to its conclusion, it's a worthwhile experience, because I think in that variety is a really ambitious game. The game
sounds like it.
Yeah. Even like this bungee jumping part, like the physics on the bungee jumping is quite interesting, and it's so different from the rest of the game. They're just like, what would be cool?
Yeah.
If we did this. And that spirit of what would be cool is quite interesting. And the game took me probably 3 hours to muscle through, even though the game is like an hour's worth of content. Mm-hmm. It's worth seeing. It's worth seeing through, or at least seeing part of, because the game is beautiful. I mean, the animation in Earthworm Jim is fucking amazing. I mean, this is a level of like... And there was a cartoon that spun out of this game because people love it so much, but it is so distinct, and it's such a weird world. And it's so clear to see how things like Ratchet and Clank take from Earthworm Jim.
Yeah.
Now that I've beaten the game and I don't have to do some of these parts again, I have a more positive opinion on the game, because I think it is I think it is a really interesting curiosity from its time period that still holds a lot of value.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to play the later games in the series now and see if some of the fuckery is removed.
Sure. Yeah. It's a game I don't have experience with, but that first game is available on Genesis Online, and the second game is available on Super Nintendo Online, for whatever godforsaken reason. Yeah. They're separated. But if you got the expansion pass, you have access to both of them. So it's a game I'll probably get around to eventually. I always liked Earthworm Jim as character design. Very cool. But I haven't played the game. But speaking of butts, I played Mario Party Star Rush on Nintendo 3DS. For actually. And this is coming kind of hot off the heels of me playing Mario Party Island Tour a couple weeks ago, and talking about how I actually kind of like that game. And I kind of like this game as well, and I think I kind of like it more than Island Tour, which I kind of like more than the other Mario Party games I've played. So Star Rush is my favorite Mario Party game, which you don't hear very many people say. And I think what I'm learning through playing these handheld Mario Party games is that my problem with Mario Party, and the reason that I've always been kind of distanced from it, even though I've played it around here or there with a group of friends, is that the long form nature of sitting down for an hour and a half with a bunch of friends and playing through this board and going around one board and essentially just doing this loop of rolling the dice and all of that is such a slow process to me that I never really feel like I can settle into it. But what I have gained appreciation for is placing the mini games, which are the draw of Mario Party, into a much more bite-sized and compact format that frankly feels more engaging to me, because it is more about constantly making forward progress, that waiting for other people to take their turn and exploring this board never really felt like I was getting what I wanted. When I played Mario Party 8 or Superstars or Super Mario Party, I was sitting there just waiting for the minigame to happen. The rest of it I didn't really care about.
Yeah.
But there's 4 or 5 different modes in Star Rush. And you have to unlock them by leveling up your party level. So I don't know, that's a little weird. But the modes that I played, there's a balloon mode. There's a mode where you're collecting other Mario characters to add to your dice score, which they brought back in Super Mario Party. I liked all these modes in the 20, 30, 40-minute bursts that I was playing them more than any other Mario Party single round than I'd ever played before, because they were doing something different with board design, and each one had a different gimmick that was always making forward progression, and everyone moves at the same time, and I was getting to mini games faster, and there was like this integration of these boss fights, which I enjoyed so much in Island Tour, that are more prevalent here, that I really did enjoy the 2 or 3 hours I spent with this game. And I really do think that placing mini games, which again I think are the best part of Mario Party, into a more compact and bite-sized format allows me to appreciate the quality a lot more. And this is a really well-made game. Like, they didn't cheap out on this. There's great backgrounds. The animations are incredible. I like the music a lot. These environments look great. I don't know. No. Basically, no one likes Star Rush, but I've really found a lot to enjoy with this game.
You should play Mario Party Top 100. Seriously.
Maybe.
If minigames are really all you want, I mean, that does have a single player mode where you're basically just working through like a tower of all the minigames. You might like that. I think. I just don't. I don't think that ND Cubed has an understanding of what makes Mario Party perennial. Because I'm with you in the sense that I've always thought that what Mario Party should have been as a series is what the closet in my parents' house is. An aggregate of all different sorts of board games.
Of course, yes, absolutely.
And my feeling was
to me is what Star Rush feels like. Each of the games feels like a different board game of using this context but placing them in something that reframes it in an interesting way, which also Island Tour did.
Yeah, but my feeling is like they're not deep at all. And the problem with those 3DS games is there's no depth to them, really. They're games of variety, but they're not games of like staying power. I even think of Super Mario Party. Super Mario Party, I think, is more interesting than Mario Party Superstars.
I agree.
But in the breadth of content meant that there's no depth to it. The running down the river mode, which is a lot of fun, or even there is a simultaneous dice roll mode like in this game in Super Mario Party. But it's just it's just like, here's a bunch of stuff. Here's a bunch of ideas. But what I mean more so is like, I want one Mario Party game that fully just fleshes out simultaneous dice rolling. I want one Mario Party game that plays more like Clue than it does like a different, you know what I mean?
Different games.
Different games fundamentally. I think Mario Party could have found variety in that way. But absolutely. Hudson said, let's make a series about iteration. And what they did is they ended up with a series by the time like Mario Party 5 and 6 come around of like real complexity. And those are the ones I really want to play. Mm-hmm. But then what ND Cube said is like, let's take it in a different direction, but we're going to just throw a bunch of shallow ideas out there. Even like Mario Party 10. I think Mario Party 10 has a lot of really cool stuff going on, particularly Bowser Party. Bowser Party has like literally 10 minigames.
Yeah, because I've played Bowser Party actually.
Yeah, and it's pretty clever. But it's like in all of their games, they're like, what if we just did a bunch of stuff?
Yeah.
But the best local multiplayer games never die. And Mario Party, these early Mario Party games never die because there's so much to do in them.
Yeah.
But like I played Star Rush for a little bit, and I'm like, I'm never touching this again. And not because it's bad. I agree with you. The production value of ND Cube's games has never been in question. Yeah. They're like their concepts have never even been in question. Mm-hmm. But I just don't think that they have an eye for executional depth for the most part.
Yeah.
So to where like I agree with you on like a conceptual level that they had something there, and they brought it back in a kind of an interesting way in Super Mario Party, which I maintain is probably the most interesting Mario Party game. Yeah. But just like, we need to go deeper. Nintendo needs to give these guys more budget and more time. Because you gotta remember, this game was on the heels of because they're like Island Tour, Mario Party 10, and Wii Party U, and Top 100, and Star Rush, and then Super Mario Party and the Mario Party Superstars, like in Clubhouse games in there. Give them time to breathe and develop their ideas.
No, I don't think that's. I don't think you're wrong at all.
Yeah,
and I think that would make everyone happier. Yeah. But I do think that I come at Mario Party from a perspective that not many people do, which is I already don't really like Mario Party.
Right.
And I'm trying to search for the elements of Mario Party that do click with me.
Sure.
And when it comes to, I have not played the N64 ones. I haven't even played the Wii ones. I haven't played the GameCube ones. These are the ones that people praise.
Yeah.
Pretty much categorically. And I'm certainly interested to try those games and see if their complexity does appeal to me. But what I have found with the structure of Mario Party, of playing those boards, and I've played a round of 8, and I've played a little bit of 10 here or there, or maybe it's fucking 9, I don't know, is that the structure of Mario Party is what doesn't appeal to me.
Sure.
So ND Cubed, yes, it being shallow, that certainly is true for someone who wants to spend 20 hours and constantly revisiting Mario Party. Yeah. But for the not layman but Tuckman here, who is going to do that with any of the Mario Party games anyway, I would rather have the 4 or 5 hours that I'm going to spend with this game and never touch it again be more variety, more mechanically interesting, more ideas, than have something that is more complex and larger scale, but on a moment-to-moment basis, less interesting than having a bite-sized, more focused experience, which I found to be able to really appreciate with Island Tour and Star Rush.
Yeah, no, you're totally right from that perspective, but I just think that is a very narrow metric of success.
It's not the average Mario Party enjoyer perspective. I understand that completely.
My thing is that, and this is not meant to disparage your opinion, but it's not even a good metric for success. In the sense that Mario Party is supposed to be a game that you play for all of this time, and it's supposed to offer fun for everybody that you can return to. And failing that, I think you failed the intent of the project. Now, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have cases like yours where it is very compelling, but just like Mario Party is meant to be something. And I don't mean that, and I don't mean that in the sense that a lot of purists mean it of it must be, we must walk around the board separately and roll dice. And I think Mario Party can be the car. I think Mario Party can be Bowser Party. I think it can be Star Rush. I think it can be Island Tour. But it has to.
And guess what? It is. It has been.
It has been, but it hasn't been in any kind of substantive way. And I think that lack of substance is like an overarching failure. Yeah. So I don't know. I just think that it's disappointing that these games come out so often and there's so little care for like community, like listening to the community. I mean, they must recognize that the game that has the littlest of them in it, Superstars, is the one that people like the most.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't know. I've got one more game.
Well, we can talk about Pilot 64 a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's break this down. We got Pilot 64. We got Overwatch 2. I got one more game. What else do you have? Do you have another game?
I can talk about Kirby's Avalanche. I played a little bit of that, but otherwise I'm spent.
I want you to save Kirby's Avalanche because, spoiler alert, we'll just do a little bit of a planning here. We had a lot of fun because we were streaming Pilot 64 last night. We're like, this is a lot of fun. We're gonna do a stream covering like puzzle games, probably. Probably gonna do one for Black Box sports games. We're gonna do one for puzzle games.
Black Box bullshit.
And let's save Kirby Avalanche for that because also the episodes.
Oh, okay, sure.
Because also we got a lot to talk about still in the episodes.
Yes, absolutely.
So what are we talking about right now?
Do your game first.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about the ones we share.
We share Pilot Wings. Yeah, so
you motherfucker, we played it together. We streamed it.
There's video evidence. After we were done doing that, we were just hanging out on call for a couple hours, and I was sort of talking about how I want to be more familiar with Genesis because like that Genesis online app is full of games that a lot of them I've never even heard of.
Yeah.
And so I just clicked on Musha, and just to see what it was, and it ended up being a shmup, and I played it all in one sitting. The shmups, as I was saying in Discord a little bit, is a genre I am compelled to learn more about because it is so perfectly attuned to me, right?
Yeah,
it's driven by gameplay, an interesting art direction, and spectacle, and that's that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so like that's right up my alley.
Period. End of sentence.
Yeah, and the shmups that I have played, I really do like. You know, I really like Ikaruga. I've made no bones about that, right? And I really like Musha. Now, the game you're basically playing is like a Gundam mech flying through, in what is almost a treasure-like fashion, a narrative of some manner of complexity and stakes, but it doesn't matter because you're just shooting shit.
Yeah,
and it's got like really interesting enemy designs, like that. I feel like they're ripped from like Japanese folklore, or Japanese horror, or whatever. At the same time, some of them are also like the robot mechs. It's a really interesting like fusion of aesthetics, and it's quite simple. It's just you fire at the guys, and sometimes you can pick up these little kanji, or I think the katakana scrolls, and when you do, you power up. But that's the...
Wait, you should know this. You took Japanese. The difference between kanji and katakana is very apparent.
You're picking up scrolls that have Japanese characters on them, and they power you up, and they get in these different like elemental power ups you can get too. But it is a very straightforward, simple shmup. There is no gimmick the way there's the color changing gimmick in Ikaruga, for instance. But I don't really mind because it looks really good. The enemy design is interesting.
I'm gonna watch some gameplay of Musha.
There's quite a bit of, as with a lot of shmups, like that insane one we played at that arcade by Timo's house.
Oh Christ, yeah.
There's a real sense of empowerment as you're just filling the screen with your orbules. So yeah, I just had a good time with it. I think that the game craters a little bit in its final boss, which is just so fucking annoyingly frustrating. Mm-hmm. But I think that on the whole, it finds a sort of a nice balance between bullet hell and sort of understandable, maneuverable projectile design. Yeah. So I was just quite impressed with the game. And it's short. I probably beat it in an hour, 90 minutes.
Yeah. I'm watching a long play here that's 41 minutes.
Okay, then it's probably an hour. We were talking, so I didn't have a really good judge of time, but like
it's okay.
An hour for me, that's replayable. I mean, it's you know, it's a little bit longer than Star Fox. It's a little bit longer than Sin and Punishment and things like that. But I'll get that time down. But yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I bought Radiant Silvergun on Switch. Mm-hmm. After John Doyle told me it's better than Ikaruga. Whether that's true or not, we'll find out. But it's my goal to just pick away at a couple shmups. And there's a lot in these collections to play. There's a number that I own in other places. So it's a genre that, as this year closes out, I'm going to make kind of a concerted effort to experience more.
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely something that is interesting because it's kind of like the Falling Block puzzle games in terms of, you know, something like Space Invaders or Galaga or Xevious. These games came out, they were very popular, and then everyone's like, that's a great idea, I can make my own of that. And so there's a fucking gazillion of these in arcades, on NES, on Super Nintendo, on Genesis. And since then the genre has mostly died down. It's not to a crazy degree, and there's a few, and people they're popular, and you know, people hold up Radiant Silvergun or Ikaruga. But it's something that I find interesting, but similar to the spectacle of Bayonetta, it's something that doesn't appeal to me. I'm not. Yeah. When you say spectacle, gameplay driven, high score, you know, repeating the game, none of that appeals to me on a very subjective level. And that doesn't mean I won't play these games. I played Ikaruga. I think it's a good game, but I found some flaws with it and disinterest that you certainly didn't. Yeah. But that doesn't mean I won't keep trying these games. I want to play Radiant Silvergun. I want to try some of these other games. I want to, you know, play through Gradius. Did I play through that? I don't remember.
I played through it.
I know you did, but I might have also on the heels. I don't fucking remember. But yeah, great goal. I'm very interested to watch you, to follow you going through these games.
Yeah, my goal really almost is to play them until I find one that I really, really love. And the reason I say that is because like, I want one that I just run over and over and over again. And I've played Ikaruga a number of times, and to the point where I die a whole hell of a lot less than I used to. Yes. But I want that one shmup that connects with me so perfectly that like that's just the one I want to play. Mm-hmm. And it's very possible that Ikaruga will be that. I'll be like, the grass isn't greener in games that isn't Ikaruga. But we'll see. I just want to play more so I know that.
The better one, Radiant Silvergun.
Apparently so, yeah. I'm probably actually going to play that today. Super excited.
We've got two more that we both share. And let's continue with Flight, the power of flight, and transfer to Pilotwings 64, a game that just came out on Nintendo Switch Online and 64 Expansion Pass last night. We may have been the first people to stream it. I don't fucking know. I wasn't looking on Twitch's Pilotwings 64 section.
We were, Tucker, definitely the first people to stream that with Sans, Fat Yoshi, and Chibi Robo on the thumbnail.
Only people in history. Absolutely. But so you played some Resort, which I don't know if we ever talked about.
30-second TLDR game is boring as sin. No difficulty, no real complexity to control. Didn't like it.
Yeah. So that was, I guess, largely my experience when I played it years ago, but I have not gone back to it in any concerted way. And we did talk about Pilotwings on Super Nintendo a couple months ago, which I couldn't even like finish the first stages, and that game is so the mode 7 is really janky and like it's ambitious, but it is not accessible in the slightest.
30-second Abram Pilot Wings talk. It's an amazing technical accomplishment. It is maybe the most impressive quote unquote simulator on the platform, but it's not fun.
Yeah, absolutely agree with all of that. But guess what? There was a third game, one that was never released outside of its original Super Nintendo.
It's actually the second game.
What?
You said there's a third one.
Oh, there was a second game in between the two of them. Pilot Wings 64, a launch game for the system alongside Super Mario 64. Am I wrong about that? Or you give me a weird look. Do you know?
That might be true.
I think it is. I'll
go with it.
Guess what? You know that story of the fucking bears with the
porridge,
soft bed and the porridges and all that nonsense?
Yeah.
Turns out there's a middle ground, and it's Pilot Wings 64.
Yeah.
And clear as the day is long, far and away, my favorite, I would say the best Pilot Wings game.
Yeah.
It strikes a really nice middle ground of having stages that challenge you to be pressing the buttons and then keep your speed and your braking and you're turning back and forth with these different vehicles in mind, but accessible enough to where when you make a mistake, you're like, I know what I did wrong and I can retry it to actually get a score good enough to try something else. And I found that game loop very satisfying as we're playing it. Yeah. I'm going to go play it in a more maybe I will. I'm saying this now, but who the fuck knows? Play it in a more concerted way on my own Switch, and I think I think it's a great game, frankly.
Yeah, you can beat it apparently in 2 hours. I saw Andre Seegers tweeting about that. He's like, beat it in 2 hours. I'm like, okay. I just don't think I like Pilot Wings. I mean, like, the controls didn't click with me right away. You can go watch me unable to control half of the vehicles.
Yes.
And like, I think for me, it is just like, it's monotonous. I find Pilot Wings to be very monotonous in the sense of like, it really feels like as is the entire like framing of the first game, me trying to get a license to operate a motor vehicle, right?
Sure.
And for me, I like the arcadey elements here more. I think it's fun how there's a greater variety. I thought the shooting the missiles one was pretty fun.
There's so much more variety.
But it's just like, I get tooling around with it in the 90s, right? When it was an amazing spectacle, technical achievement.
Yes.
Never seen played anything like that on console. But now, to me, it's just lost to time. That interest for me is lost to time. So I agree with you. I think it probably is the best one. Yeah. But for me, I don't see it. And I think it also doesn't help that I think that the aesthetic doesn't do anything for me. Like the thing that Resort has going for it, at least in my opinion, are the Mii's and Woohoo Island. Yeah. And sure, the characters are like weird and named after birds and kind of funny, but like it's in that sort of Wavery 64 zone of like they're just like people. Yeah. And it's
They're wacky cartoonized Nintendo versions. Yeah. One guy looks exactly like fucking Nestor. It's just one MILF's got giant thighs, you know.
Yeah, I think I'm just ships in the night with Pilot Wings.
Yeah, but yeah. But we've got one more game to talk about. It's a game that we also played together last night. It's a game that we've been playing for years.
It's a game that my Switch says I have played 15 hours or more of.
Since you got the first game back in the day?
No, since Overwatch 2 came out. Overwatch 2 says I've played 15 hours or more.
Oh. Well, okay, so Overwatch 2 has released. It has replaced Overwatch 1, which is by far and away my biggest complaint with this game is, God damn it, why'd you do this? I understand why you did that, but you still shouldn't have done it. But I've played a reasonable amount of Overwatch 2. I haven't gotten addicted to it, but unlike most multiplayer games in years, I have been playing this game one round or two almost every day for about a week now, which doesn't usually happen. Yeah. You know, I'll pop in and play a round of Halo Infinite with you and the boys. I'll play some Splatoon every couple of weeks, but I've found a lot more opportunity to return to the world of Overwatch through this lens, with you, with my brother, with some other friends, more so than I've played any multiplayer game in a very long time. And to the original game's credit, this is my favorite Overwatch was my favorite multiplayer game of all time.
Yeah.
And guess what Overwatch 2 is? It's Overwatch, with a few changes that I think are pros and cons, but I still think that what I am playing is still one of the best designed games I've ever played. So I'm very happy with Overwatch 2.
Yeah.
There are some big qualms that I have, and I think that once we get that single-player campaign next year, where the real meat and potatoes, what Overwatch 2's identity is, I think that this could easily become one of my favorite games of all time. Again, as it stands, it's still one of my favorite games of all time because it's Overwatch, but with some changes that are hit or miss.
Yeah, man, I'm just not happy with Overwatch 2. I'm just not. It's a lot of fun to play with you, and it's a lot of fun when I'm just in it, right? And because it is. Here's how I come down on it. Like, it's close enough to Overwatch 1 to where it doesn't feel fundamental, but it's far enough away to where it doesn't feel right.
Sure. Oh, interesting. Sure.
Because like there's some threads going around that I think make sense of like they're esportsifying Overwatch in terms of stripping out a lot of sort of the goofier elements of kits. Mei doesn't freeze people anymore.
Yeah.
Cole can't stun people anymore. Now there's more. Now people are like, oh, freeze and stuns, get rid of them, right? But it's the principle of funnel everything towards damage. Make the game about damage.
Yeah.
Blend the roles of characters together. Introduce people who don't really do anything other than do damage, right?
Yeah.
And it's like there was a sort of. I remember writing about Overwatch. I think maybe the first thing I ever published ever on like a private private blog was about Overwatch, calling it like the Smash Brothers of shooters. Yeah. Because everybody felt so defined.
Yeah.
I don't really think there's a lot of definition to Overwatch anymore.
No, that's true. That's true.
And you combine that with just a framework around the experience that I just don't like. And if I would have much rather paid $70 for Overwatch with a campaign next year than paid for this than not pay for this right now.
Completely agree with you.
Because I don't like the battle pass. I don't want a battle pass in this game. I don't want it. I think that it makes progression more confusing. Frankly, because I don't like that it ties heroes into there. I don't like all of this shit. I liked how Overwatch 1 was here's everything. Progression is cosmetic. That's it.
Yeah.
But it's this weird space where it's not that anymore. They're trying to free-to-play monetize it. There's been so many issues with account migration and server issues and then pulling characters out of ranked rotation so they can fix them. I just think the game is a mess, and I think it really misses a lot of the elegant simplicity of what Overwatch used to be. And I'm left with this game that's like pushing for esports and pushing for free to play, and it feels more like they're trying to be Valorant than they're trying to be this colorful, distinct hero shooter. And maybe that's going to change with time. Maybe the more I play it, I'm going to feel better about it. But man, bring it down to 5v5 is a decision for team comp, for esports play, and nothing else. And that is the crux of the design redesign. And I'm just like, this is not why I play Overwatch, and I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. And you and I are in an interesting position. We were huge Overwatch 1 fans.
Yeah.
It's both one of our favorite games of all time. And I agree with basically everything you said about their distinctness, about that game being so colorful and amazing. I think that I don't think it's lost as much of that as you have with the changes to Overwatch 2. But what's interesting is we're not the primary audience for Overwatch, for these kind of games, for multiplayer shooters, for what the genre has become over the years since the first one came out with the introduction of PUBG and Fortnite and Valorant and League of Legends, Apex Legends. These games are more popular than we can even fucking conceive of. And what Blizzard did is they listened to the majority in an interesting way of making it free to play, making it cross progression, making it crossplay. The game is more accessible now than ever. Battle passes are something that appeals to most people that play this kind of games, so that's a good thing for most people. Getting rid of the loot boxes gets rid of the I'm missing this, and you can see your progression as you're doing the battle pass. That is a pro. For some people, not us necessarily, stripping down to 5v5, getting rid of barriers, getting rid of stuns. These are things that people complained a lot about with Overwatch 1 tonight. Please, Blizzard, get rid of shield metas. Make it so that tanks are more fun to play instead of just sitting there. They made these changes, and they made Overwatch the game that more so than people were, that they were fixing complaints that people had problems with. So I think that this is, for the majority of people, probably the ideal way to play Overwatch, but because that launch game and its identity and what we experienced so much appealed to us, and that's what we loved, losing that absolutely does lose some people. I don't disagree with that at all. And it is, I'm not going to get into this game as much as I was when I played Overwatch, and I miss 6v6, and I miss Bastion being ridiculously OP and Mei freezing and all that. These were things that I loved about the original game, but these changes were not made for no reason. 5v5, lack of shields, these were because they were complaints with the original game. So it's a balancing act that I recognize was probably the right decision, but it wasn't the right decision for me.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I don't think it was the right decision at all. And here's the reason why I feel that. You're not getting the people who play Warzone and play Apex and play Fortnite, you're not getting them. You know what I mean? Like, I think...
But you're much more likely to get them. And guess what? That's most players of online multiplayer gaming right now.
You're right. But the way I think about it is that people have their games. And Fortnite is such a well-oiled machine that it gets so much new content that people who play Fortnite don't need a new game to play. Yeah. Warzone is about to release Warzone 2, and they're going to take all their players over there. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing that Halo Infinite did wrong, I think. Is like try to chase a space in the market that is too busy. And you know what?
I agree and disagree because the genre has grown significantly. PUBG, very popular, one of the best-selling games of all time. People still play it, but Fortnite is there. Oh, and now Valorant. Oh, and now Apex Legends. These games, these free-to-play on the show. Warzone is new. It's relatively new. And so Fortnite's not less popular because Warzone came out and Valorant came out, and these are some of the most popular games of all time. So people are looking for these games more than I think you're giving credit to.
I just think that the market is full, and chasing market trends is not worth doing when these games already exist. That's my thing. Yeah. Like, you want to make Overwatch free to play, that's fine, but I think compromising Overwatch's design to make it more like these other games that are more esports minded is not a good idea, because the people who want that are going to go play the games that are already out there. Overwatch was fun as this sort of as a game that, like a lot of Nintendo's multiplayer games, rode the line between goofiness and RNG and fun and skill and tech and meta and everything, right? Yeah. And losing that, I mean, best of luck to them, but now all of a sudden you are competing against all these games that have their player bases and some are going to move, but it's hard to break in. It's very hard to break in. Yeah. I mean, we just saw Platinum, obviously a much worse game in Babylon's Fall. Babylon's Fall is already gone. That was the service game.
I don't know. It was?
It is already gone. This is a competitive space. Halo Infinite has no traction anymore. Now, that has a lot of problems with its content release strategy, but Overwatch seems to have an equally nebulous roadmap, and people are not happy with that Battle Pass.
Well, that's not true, because they have every season will be 2 new maps and 1 new hero, and the single-player content is coming, like... I guess it's similarly nebulous, but it is more concrete than what they did with Halo Infinite.
Yeah, but think about how much content these other games get constantly. Two new modes thrown into a rotation, 2 new maps thrown into rotation, 1 new hero. Everybody will dive to the hero for a weekend, and then they'll be, like, I don't think that chasing this spot in the market was a good idea. I mean, Overwatch was huge. You could have made a proper Overwatch that retains that spirit and speaks to people who don't want to play an esports-minded game.
Sure.
And you could have been big. You could have. And I just think that I think that Overwatch 2 is going to have a lot of problems. And I hope that it does well, and I'm really excited to try PvE, and I'll keep playing with you because I do like Overwatch. Believe it or not, I love Overwatch. Yeah. I just don't think they're making the right decision. And I get tracing trends is important, and Blizzard is in not good shape. So I get why they did it like this, but I think the game lacks identity. And that to me is killing Overwatch's identity is maybe the worst thing you can do. Sure. Because that game's all about its identity.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree and disagree, but I think we've kind of said our pieces about this. I think that it's a game that I hope that I will be able to appreciate for the changes it made as I play more, because as I'm hopping into my first few Overwatch 2 games, I'm like, 5v5 doesn't... Where's our other tank? Yeah. Right? I'm like, this isn't right. But that's because I played Overwatch 1 for years, for hundreds of hours, and that's what I'm used to. I don't think that 5v5 is inherently a bad design. There's plenty of games with 5v5 design. And I think it can work for Overwatch. And I think a lot of people are happy with that. But the interesting thing about Overwatch and like the preservation of this and the fact that there's all these updates is by the time Overwatch 1 ended, it was nothing like what we played at launch anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 years into after it came out, it was already nothing like what it was when it came out.
Right.
So it's a game that's constantly evolving. And so when I think about Blizzard, please leave Overwatch 1 available somehow.
Right.
Which version of Overwatch 1? On which update? With what changes? Do you want to have what it was when it came out without these new heroes, without these changes? And now we have Overwatch 2, which brings us to some hero kit changes and new skins and updated visuals and, frankly, has succeeded, for good and for worse, with rejuvenating Overwatch. This game has been out of the popular sphere for a long time, but Overwatch 2 comes out. It's free to play. People are interested in talking about it. It is back. It's very easy to find a match in a couple seconds online. So it has succeeded in a lot of the ways that they were hoping for it to. And I'm hoping that with the addition of PvE, which is obviously where most of the development time for this game went, that the identity and the effort and the changes to Overwatch 2 will feel more at home in where we are looking for. Yeah. And this game can exist in two spheres at once that I think appeal to multiple markets of bringing in players of other games because it does fit into a different, more genre trend archetype now, but having that single player campaign with the personality and the characters and the new mechanics that we were always wanting out of Overwatch 1 that it never really had a chance to have.
Yeah, no, you make a lot of good points, and it's very possible that the more I play, because I've only played a couple hours, I might just be like, yeah, whatever. You are clearly are speaking the language of the Blizzard folk. Like what you're saying is you're totally spot on as to why stuff happened. I just question whether it should have, and we'll find out. But give me a lot to think about.
And I hope we give you guys a lot to think about here. Another long episode of Backlog Banter, but boy, a lot of stuff covered here. A lot of interesting topics. A little bit of debate, but good debate, healthy debate.
We're
growing.
Debate.
Our bond is deepening. Tucker will remember that.
Tea time, friendship levels. Give me a soothe bell. Tie a soothe bell around my. Never mind.